Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, November 16th, Sunday, November 17th, for those of you beyond the pond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media. Late night in the Rockies. Hope you guys had a rockin' week, an awesome beginning to your weekend. I am your host, TessTNT, and we are live tonight on Spreaker, Periscope, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know the crew of ECBRO. And ECBRO stands for East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. Daniel J. Benoit is the founder and researcher, and he wrote their bio. And it says, one who grew up in nature as a child playing and hunting with his father became quite familiar with wildlife as the years went by. The thought of Bigfoot wasn't nothing he dwelt on or thought of, but was heard of and was known to the back of his mind. But it was not till the seeing the Roger Patterson and Bib Gimlin footage analyzed and worked on when the curiosity struck and a great interest grew, and is now a strong desired passion for the love and research of Sasquatch. Daniel started off as an independent investigator as he was taken notice of the rise of the Sasquatch, as he referred to it, as the subject was becoming more open and widely known among the public society, but yet it was not accepted. He soon learned, after he was involved in his own research, that there was a much larger community that existed and dedicated to the study and discussion of Bigfoot. This community was found on social media, hidden from most non-believers and skeptics to protect their identity and reputation against the mockery and ridicule of the closed-minded, the unaware, and the ones lacking the real truth. As an independent investigator, Daniel soon began researching the theories that many had floating around the web. He went in with a very open mind, believing that anything was possible, especially with the unknown. His awareness was opened more abroad, his senses were alert, and became more in touch with nature as he explored more in depth and began to pay special attention to the known wildlife itself. Behaviors and patterns were studied more closely to how wildlife lived. Observation of odd structures became known, and the world around him became more open to him. Only then did the discoveries begin to take place. Tracks of all the various wildlife were more noticed as he researched more diligently with great passion, and they were found the big unknown humanoid bipedal tracks. Throughout his early field work came many more findings of larger tracks in deep remote areas along the East Coast. With his senses more keen and his mind more apt to the world around him, the forest sounds were heightened to his sense of hearing, taking notice of all known species and then learning the various sounds of the unknown. Daniel began research out of the field in the studies comparing all known wildlife, both foreign and domestic. The more he searched, he learned of one known species, matched the sounds, behaviors, and other occurrences that many others experienced as a similar, equal, but yet different. The modern great apes that the world today is aware of, these known primates living among us today, all have the same behaviors as what is observed today in America. The long unknown howls, the whoops, the tree knocks, and the many other found structures of formations, some appearing to be possible shelters, are all equal to our known primates. Since Bigfoot is not acknowledged by science today, there is no classification of what Sasquatch or Bigfoot is as to a specific identification. Daniel is not and does not consider our big hairy forest-dwelling subject one of our known primates. However, he does compare the two, and in doing so he believes undoubtedly that Bigfoot is a form of ape, but all in all its own species, but definitely not human by any means. His research has discovered many details, meaning some known facts. However, it is all still speculation due to the lack of science not doing their part in the field. This is the very reason that ECBRO has set in motion the Discovery Project and has gathered a sincere, honest, and dedicated team. Let this little taste of information enlighten you to the knowledge of and the true dedication we truly have in this field of cryptozoology. Do know that the ECBRO are not experts in any field but are always researching and studying to bring the truth to light. The ECBRO seeks your support as well as patience as they continue on their mission to provide logical, clear, and real evidence as they have always done. They believe in educating and bringing awareness to both the Bigfoot community and the closed-minded, lost world around them. So tonight we have team members Daniel Benoit, Baldemar Galvan Jr., and Nikki Colon. Welcome so much to the show tonight.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thanks. You made it!
Yes, I did. Yeah, I had to go back out and come back in, and then when I got on Skype, I saw where it said join call. I was like, okay, this makes it easier.
Indeed. So, I was worried.
Absolutely. Well, definitely thank you for having all of us, and we love talking about Bigfoot, so that's our thing. And we actually haven't been on here in a while to speak as a group. I mean, usually we hold like a weekly podcast, but just I've been either too busy, tired, exhausted. Because I drive during the week, so I'm usually too tired to do anything. So,
Yeah, it seems like the season change has really taken a lot out of everybody. I've been in hibernation mode, but also fighting an ear infection. I thought it was just side effects of a cold I had, but after 5 weeks, I finally went to the doctors. Hibernation season.
You don't mind me asking, now you're out in Colorado, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, wow. What's the weather like out that way?
It's been fairly cold, but not too bad. I just recently got back from a trip to Arkansas and New Orleans, and that was nice. And it seems like when I left and came back here, their weather got really cold, so I got lucky on that one.
Oh, okay. So no snow yet out there?
No, not here. I'm in southwest Colorado, so we haven't had any snow yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the Four Corners area.
Right, that's right. I'm having a brain fart. For some reason, I'm thinking more like around Montana or something like that. I'm forgetting the wrong part of the country here. So,
yeah, up in Denver, they've got snow up there. I actually took some pics from the plane, and
nice.
They got some nice coating, but yeah, the weatherman's been threatening us with some snow, and I'm just not ready. How about you guys? Have you guys gotten any snow yet?
Here in Virginia, there's parts that have gotten dustings, maybe an inch or two. Now, where I live in Virginia, you would think that we would already have been hit already. I mean, the east of the Blue Ridge, they had some last week. Like I said, just a dusting. They had some sleet. But here where we are, we're more in the elevation area. We got the mountains out here. The only thing I've seen was just a random, occasional flurry. But we just got the real cold temps right now, so. Yeah, it's pretty chilly out there right now. So,
yeah, I don't know about you guys, but here it seemed like we didn't really have a fall. It just got really cold one day, and all the leaves fell off, and that was it. But when I went back east to Arkansas, there was actually, the different pretty colors of the leaves, and you got to enjoy it. And the crispness came on like slowly, but here it was just like wham bam.
Yeah, it almost seems like that how it worked out here with like you were talking about the fall jump. We got I don't know. It's just like a slam. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm dreading to see how much snow we might get this year. You always hear when we have a hot summer, people talk about we're gonna have a real severe cold winter. It's gonna be bad. And, I mean, they've been saying that for the last 3 to 5 years. It hasn't been all too bad. So, but you just never know. So, it's one of those hit and miss kind of things.
Indeed. So. Yeah. I'm hoping it's not too bad, but we also do snow plowing and stuff. So it's like pennies from heaven. But at the same time, I would like for a week of snow and then that to be the end of it.
Right. Absolutely. Snow is always fun to see. It's always nice to see it, but as long as it doesn't, interfere with your daily life, things that you want to get out and do, but
Yeah, for sure. Especially for you
now
guys. You
where I'm,
guys work outdoors a lot, right? With your Bigfoot hunting.
oh yeah, absolutely. Now, like
Oh,
Nick,
definitely.
where Nikki and Baldemar are, I know they get some cold temperatures down there, but I don't know. You don't mind me asking them. I don't know if I've ever asked them this question before, but Nikki and Baldemar, do you guys ever get snow down in Texas?
What is that?
There is spots of snow, but not really where I am. Maybe up on the mountain, on the Franklin Mountains, but more like 2 or 3 hours north of where I'm at, up on the mountains
Oh,
there, they'll get a lot of heavy snow.
yeah. I like Baldemar's answer. He said, "What's that?"
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I was just curious. I know they get a lot of hot temperatures down there, throughout the
Oh,
year.
definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, when he said "What's that?" I didn't even know if he meant snow or what you were asking.
Oh,
No,
okay.
yeah, because snow out here, it rarely snows out here, and it normally snows like every 4 years or something like that. So, and for us to see snow is just a big surprise and a real big treat.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Same here. It
Never,
snowed once
yeah, it
about
never
4 years
sticks.
ago here in El Paso, and it was here one day and gone the next, and that's about it.
So let's get our listeners up to par as far as who our teammates are and how exactly you guys got your start. Let's start with Daniel, since you founded the group. What got you started on Bigfoot and the paranormal?
Well, you know, let's see. As much as I tell this, I always try to find a different way to tell it, but it always comes out the same one way or another. um, well, for a lot of people, as I always tell, basically what caused me to pursue the subject, really get into it, was basically the observation, the seeing of the film of the Roger Patterson footage, which I know that probably did it for a lot of people. I mean, and being who I am, grew up being out in the woods, either playing or hunting, and then you just, whatever. After seeing the video footage of the Roger Patterson footage of what they deemed as Patty, and then not just seeing the film, later on they put in, they put science got involved. They try to debunk the whole video footage. Um, and then seeing that they weren't able to debunk it even till this day, that's basically what got me looking. I was always familiar with outdoors, but this opened up my eyes in a different way. I mean, it just had me more on alert. It basically opened up my senses. More aware of things that I wasn't paying attention to, or what never really thought to look for or to listen for. Um, and I'm sure a lot of people who started off in this, are, kind of could relate, as far as when either if they see a Bigfoot for the first time and they want to continue pursuing it. Basically it really, it does the same thing for someone who's seen one that wants to continue pursuing it. Then again, you got someone who's seen that don't want to go out there again or ever see one again. I've heard that numerous times, but after seeing one, I'm not seeing one, but after seeing the footage and everything, and like I said, it opens up your senses. A curiosity developed. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see, hey, does Bigfoot exist in my area? And basically, I've learned of a lot of stories. When I first got on social media and learned that there was others involved, I started looking into it more. I was like, well, there's Bigfoot sightings here. There's Bigfoot sightings there. I was like, the big question was, okay, Bigfoot, I believe in Bigfoot, and I wanted to know does Bigfoot exist in my area? How populated is Bigfoot? And that's a big question till this day. And we could guess all we want, but going out in the woods, that's basically what I was looking for. I was looking for evidence. I wanted to know, is Bigfoot that common? As far as common as well as other wildlife. We can go out in the woods and see deer all day long. I mean, I almost kick up deer every time I go out in the woods. But, deer are highly populated, and deer. I'm not trying to compare deer to Bigfoot by no means, because, So yeah, after observing this, the Patterson footage and getting out in the woods, on full alert, I guess that's the best way I'm going to put it, is being on full alert with my senses. Had me looking on the ground, had me looking all over, and people talking about tree breaks and different structures and formations. I started looking into some of that. That I came a long ways with that. But keep in mind, at the same time, I'm very objective with a lot of this too. But as you'll probably learn from Nikki and Baldemar, we have our views on a lot of things, and we don't believe everything is Bigfoot related. We honestly believe in truth, and at the same time, we're also very objective with things. But so yeah, just like I said, that's opened up a new world to me. And after getting into the field and really paying attention, I started finding what I consider my own personal evidence. Now, what I consider my personal evidence, will science consider it? No, but it was enough for me that convinced me. I said, okay, there's something here, and then we kind of take it from there. Basically one step at a time. And but that's basically where I kind of got started there, and I know the Patterson footage has been out for over 50 years. At least over 50 years now. And anyone could observe it. They got more enhanced imagery of that footage, which is actually pretty good. They shows a lot of details. But yeah, that's what got me kind of going into that. So I don't want to keep rambling on that, but that's where I go.
No worries. And Baldemar, how did you get into the field? How long have you been researching Bigfoot, and how did you guys come together?
What actually happened, since I was small, we would always hear stuff in the woods, and the very first thing they come up there and say that it's a cougar, mountain lion, whatever. But it would happen like every other night, or it would happen, it would actually happen quite a bit, actually. And then, so when we were growing up, we always had legends and stories about like Ormiona and long things, basically, or the lechuza, and that's a different type of animals or medieval animals that actually lived there in the woods that we had to be aware of, and that's the kind of folklore that they actually taught us about as basically as we were growing up. And sometimes, so that's the kind of stories, again, that's what we grew up. And then, so, once we heard these stuff in the woods, we just, is this, is that, whatever. And then, in the 2000, October of 2013, we were actually in a ranch, and we were patrolling the certain ranch, and all of a sudden, there, standing in this sendero, is this big old black thing standing on two legs. And I know it wasn't a coyote. I know it wasn't a cow. I know it wasn't a horse or anything like that. And it goes, these animals don't walk on two legs. And I told my buddy, hey, get back a little bit, and let's see if I can get me a picture. And then when he moved back, that sucker was gone in less than a second, super fast. So I got off the truck, and there was another pipeline crossing. I said, I want to go down over there and check if I could catch it, passing the pipeline to find out where it's going. And sure enough, when I went to the area where this animal stood, it was a real strong musty smell. The best way to describe it was rotten eggs and a wet dog mixture. But when I went to the pipeline, I couldn't find anything. I contacted some people, and I contacted some Bigfoot researchers down in East Texas, and nobody gave me a call back. So I decided to, hey, the best people to talk to would be the old timers. And then so we decided to talk to the old timers. And then so sure enough, and I got introduced to Mr. Robbie. And I told Mr. Robbie, have you ever seen any strange things down these creeks that go like what? So I told him my story. And then he comes up and says, hey, you need to come into my shop. come into my office and I'll show you what I got. And he actually found a structure of structure that Bigfoot actually made in a small little town called Berkeley, Texas. And then I decided to, have a little meeting saying, well, if I had this encounter, I wonder if anybody else had these encounters. So I started a group here in Beeville, Texas, and it was called the B County Bigfoot Research. So I put a web page up and everything. If anybody had any stories, they could go over there and talk about it. So sure enough, and then I finally had a Bigfoot meeting. And the very first Bigfoot meeting that I had, 6 people showed up with stories that happened all the way from 1924 and stuff that happened quite a bit. I mean, through all these years between 50, 60 years ago. And then, so the way that I got, and then from there, that's the way the whole Bigfoot stuff started. And then how I got involved with Daniel, as Daniel and Shaky had a show, and they actually invited me to come along, and basically the rest is history.
That's awesome. So when you did see this Bigfoot, or what you suspected to be Bigfoot, did you find any tracks at all? I know it moved out of the way really fast, but was there any evidence as far as tracks?
But the thing is, again, everything's dealing with the terrain. And because down over here we have a lot of sandy loam, and it's very difficult, actually to go see a track. Also, too, the grass was high. There was nothing like that, but I did find one track here that was actually found where one of my cousins actually hit a wild pig, and it was lying there on the side of the road. And then so it rained pretty good, and I only got one cast from there that the animal actually picked up the wild pig from the side of the road and took it back into the creek. So that's the only track that I had, and I've been finding a lot more evidence down here recently, where I'm also very long-winded as well. But I'm going to tell you what happened to me this weekend. Actually, I was taking we actually took my cousin hunting, and we actually taught him how to shoot, how to use a rifle and everything like that. So I was down in a deer blind with him. And then after that, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go take him and everything. So we're looking for deer, and then I fell asleep in the blind, sitting on the chair, and I started snoring. I shouldn't say this story, and it's kind of embarrassing, and
Nah, go ahead and say it.
Okay, so anyway, so I fell asleep on the chair, and I was snoring. And then some little cousin comes up there and just started watching around and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, he starts hearing this deep breathing sound right behind our blind. And so he was actually telling my brother the story that about the deep breathing sound that he actually heard behind the blind. He goes, it sounded so loud that he could open up the door and actually hit it with the door, and that's how close it was. And he came up there, and he said something odd. That he comes up, he goes, have you ever seen armadillos fly? I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, I could have swore I heard a thump, and here comes this armadillo. And I'm going, and it was kind of odd to me. And I'm going, what do you think happened? Maybe that you guys it threw it or something? So, I don't know what happened. So he was telling me the story about that. So, and then so the next morning, so he was telling my brother, he goes, hey, I heard some deep breathing sounds down behind the blind and everything like that. So my brother goes, Baldy, come here. Tell him the story about the deep breathing sounds. I said, all right. He goes, well, I was top of this tree, had a tree stand. And then what I normally did was I like taking pictures of wildlife. And I had this tree stand, and I was up there this particular day, and no wildlife came out. It was kind of odd. And then all of a sudden I heard this deep breathing sound down the creek. And I said, man, that's strange. And then so I climbed down the deer blind, down the stand. And as soon as I stopped, as soon as my feet hit the ground, deep breathing stopped. And I said, man, Baldy, that's a figment of your imagination. Get up there and just wait for some animals to come and take photos. And sure enough, I went back on top of that tree and sat down there. As soon as I sat down on top of that tree, the deep breathing sound started again. Man, it felt like this thing was underneath my tree stand. So I came back down. I said, man, the very first thing came to my mind. He goes, how does it feel like something you? So anyway, so I went home. 2 days later, I finally got the courage to come back. And lo and behold, now my tree is knocked down. And then, so when my little cousin told me the story about the deep breathing sounds, and then so I had to tell him that story to say, hey, bud, this is what's going on here. And we had evidence here a few months ago when we actually found a tree branch that was actually twisted. So we've been having a whole bunch of activity out there. And the thing is, again, it's like, I don't want to heat up an area and just frequently go down over there. My main thing is going hunting. And if I find the opportunity to catch him on a trail cam and everything like that, I could hopefully do that. But again, it's an art and a skill, because Bigfoot also messes with trail cameras, and we just have to be just one step ahead of him. So he'll make one mistake, and we'll probably catch him on film.
That's interesting. I think he was pissed off because you were taking over his hunting grounds.
Exactly. But basically, what happened was I got kicked out of this place. So. Yeah, because basically he was telling me, well, I don't want you here in my area. So, but it was a strange thing. But again, I've always was in the woods. I've always, as a small little kid, my ancestors were Apaches, and that's one thing they always taught us about nature and stuff. So I know quite a bit about tracks and everything. So,
hey, you mind if I jump in there real quick? I just wanted to make mention that Baldemar, you mentioned about a flying armadillo.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to make a joke about it, but it sounded like you might have interfered with Bigfoot maybe playing kickball with armadillo.
Well, the thing was, but the thing is, but this little kid, he's like 14, 15 years old. And so he comes up there and heard this stomp, and all of a sudden here comes this armadillo like a little bit up in the air. So the stomp basically woke me up, and he comes up, he goes, armadillo. I said, all right. So and then all of a sudden he never told me anything what happened to him while I was sleeping. So I just said, you know what, it's. And the next day, he starts telling us this story. I said, all right. I said, now I know that he's close by, and you should see the hog activity that's out here. There's so much hog activity out here, and that's also big food supply for Bigfoot as well. So
it's like a live mortar round.
Mm-hmm.
Kick the armadillo in, and then it's a good distraction. It's crawling around. You're paying attention to the armadillo instead of where the armadillo came from.
Right. So I mean, it sounds kind of funny, So you're, some of your listeners can, come up. The thing is, again, we just don't. I really don't know what happened, and and the way that he explained it to me. And this little kid is a good kid, excellent in school. He's a straight shooter. He's a wonderful little kid, and he's kind of a person that really doesn't exaggerate a lot of things. And then so when he comes up there and tells me this story, and I'm going, and I said, oh my goodness, because this is just fascinating. And then so again, I don't know what happened, but he was the only person there that could actually explain to me a little bit better. So stranger things have happened.
Well, in the chat room, Baldemar, Nikki's asking, are you or have you ever been telepathic with Bigfoot at any time?
Dealing with that is that, the very first time when I really had something, and, I don't think it's telepathic or anything like that, but it's just when I was on top of that tree, and the very first thing that came to my mind, was how does it feel like something's hunting you? Could that be telepathic? I don't know. There's sometimes also too, there's sometimes when you could be in an area, and when there's something close by, and it was like last night I was down by the same area where I had the Bigfoot activity, sitting down, listening, just talking to my fiance on the phone, and then all of a sudden I got this real eerie feeling that there's something staring at me, and you better go, and you better go now. So again, kicking me out in one certain area. So, and if he has a certain way to, it's just like a cat. It's just like a cat. In Spanish, we actually call it ligando, and that's what a cat does to a bird after it attacks it. And you just have that feeling that something's staring at you. So you just, if you want to call that telepathically, you can call it that way. So.
That's an awesome story.
I feel like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make a minute. To me, it feels like, I feel like this kind of like the awareness, your senses heightened and alerted more. Kind of like what I was mentioning earlier. When you become aware of these things, your senses, are more enhanced because you're more keen to pay attention without even realizing it. So then at the same time, like Baldemar was mentioning, like I could relate to what Baldemar was talking about. Like you sense and you feel that there's something there, but you may not see it, but you could sense that it's there. To me, when that happens to me, I feel like that's more of there's a word for that, and I think it's like I said, it's when you feel like, especially when that saying when the hair on the back of your neck stands up, it kind of you may not, it's
primal.
I get. What's that again?
Like primal or intuitive, like intuition.
Yeah, that sounds more about right. Kind of like instinct, like your instincts of instinct may have a little bit to do with it, but yeah, you're picking up on that is, so yeah, the other word I'm actually thinking of may actually come to me afterwards, but but I think when you're out there enough and experienced, when there's something around, it's kind of like like Baldemar even mentioned, like even a cat or a dog will pick up on something, know that there's something there. He may not see it, but he knows that there's something there because his senses, a dog, a canine, their senses are way more advanced or more heightened than ours are, so that's how I kind of look at it, if you ask me.
It's just like I also do ghost hunting as well. And there's sometimes also when I would go into a certain place and I could feel right away if it's haunted or not, or if something if you feel like an evil intent, or if you feel something just not right into a house, I feel that. So that's when basically that's when you go into the woods and you have to rely on your senses, sight, hearing, smell. I mean, everything has to go into place. It's just like when you're deer hunting and you come over there and you smell the musk of the deer, or knowing when the buck's close by. You always have to be aware of your surroundings. But let me tell you one thing: once it gets dark, I do not go into these woods, because I know that is his time and his place, and I respect that from that. And even though that let's say for example, if we would kill a deer at night, and we know very well that we have to go track it, because that's the way that we were taught. We don't leave an animal wounded out there. You have to go look for it. And then so we'll come up there and we'll find it. If not, we'll just wait till the next day. And if not, Bigfoot definitely had a big meal.
For sure. Nikki, what about you? What got you into the field, and what interested you in the paranormal and Bigfoot?
Well, I think I was probably like the other guys. I spent a lot of time out in the woods. I grew up in northern Arizona and tried to spend every weekend out there camping and having fun, and always found the cryptid interesting, growing up in the 70s and knowing always watching In Search Of and Monster Quests and all the specials that had anything to do with Bigfoot or Mothman or any of those things always kept my interest. So I just grew up with that. I really didn't get into becoming an enthusiast until probably around 2010, when I had actually moved out of the country for a little while, and I had nothing better to do than to look on the internet. And that was the subject that interested me the most. Was I researched every video, audio, blog that there was out there and read up on it, and was just kind of like an armchair researcher, I guess you would call me. But until I came back home, and then, I would be a weekend warrior and just go out. But I never really went out. I never consider myself a researcher to prove they exist. I would go out just to, for my own answers. And to have fun, because I think more people have sightings when they're least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
So my number one thing was just to go out there and see what was out there, and what attracted me most was one time when I came upon Daniel's group, and even though he was on the East Coast, he stayed. How do I say? Everything he had to do with nature, and that his answers were never Bigfoot. They were always, well, this could have happened from this animal, or this could have been from the weather, or this could have been. He was the type that, Bigfoot was the last answer. And that's what I liked, because I'm a little bit more scientific. I like to rule out things, and that's what he does. He has a lot of different answers than everything's a Bigfoot, because that kind of turned me off there for a while, is that you just get so many videos of stump squatches and pareidolia with matrixing and all this stuff that I just, I don't like. I'm a huge skeptic when it comes to evidence. And even though I'm a believer, I am a believer. I am not a knower. I've never seen one, but I do believe they're out there. There are too many incidents and reports out there, and too many credible people that I believe them. They've seen something. And I believe them, and there's something out there that is being elusive. And although for a very long time, my thought is that this is some kind of primate or animal or wood ape, I'm open. I'm trying to stay open-minded to the fact that, many people these days are saying that they're beings, that they are from the other line, from a human being side than and the ape animal side. If you get my drift, because we're all primates, but I think they have their own rung in the ladder of life, that we just haven't discovered. So, but that's how I got interested in Daniel, and I followed him a lot, and I followed all his podcasts, and then before you know it, I was being guested on some podcasts, because I was the skeptic, and I would always shoot down everybody's evidence, and and Daniel would come on and fight me, and I would fight back. Well, show me, and before I knew it, he kept having me on his podcast, and that's kind of how it all started, way back when. Even though, I've always been in the Southwest, you find who you like to follow, and you support them, and you agree on certain things, but The Bigfoot community has a way of beating up on itself. So the less you can deal with that, the better. So that's how I got into it.
Very cool. So you described how you and Daniel had found each other. Daniel, how did you find Baldemar?
Well, that's a good question. How did we find each other, Bill? What?
He just showed up one day.
Apparently that I think somehow I know that you and Shaky were there. And then so you asked me to go and to come and do a broadcast, and the rest is history.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was bigfootlovers.com or not. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's just, we kind of lose track how we all came about, but then again, it's just how we started mingling together through podcasts and having open discussions and sharing everybody's different point of views. And, what I like about it, there's a lot we could agree on, but then at the same time, there's a lot that we could, agree to disagree, because sometimes,
exactly.
We might have a different point of views and disagree, and that's healthy, on the other hand, there's others out there that will, if you disagree with them or if they disagree with you, they're going to throw a fit, but but that's the fun about it is like, okay, if this person disagrees, they share why they disagree. And then at the same time, we could take that into consideration, make note of that. And then maybe if our theory or our thoughts or whatever, our opinions don't add up later on, then we can look at, hey, well, so-and-so believes it was this. Let me start looking after this, It's the same thing about people thinking Bigfoot is some type of human or maybe Neanderthal. That may be true. Although I have my beliefs, but I could have my beliefs and conclusions on what Bigfoot might be, but until science, says otherwise, and we really don't know, but we could believe and guess what we want, there's people that say that, oh, well, we got DNA. Bull doo-doo. We don't have DNA, because if we did, and if, people say all these samples to prove that Bigfoot exists, unless you have a body to compare those samples to, you don't have nothing, because there's no answers. I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but we could break that down. Unless but there's people that swear that, oh, so and so proved that they existed. No, she did not. But I'm not going to get into that. But that's a whole different topic there. But yeah, again, just sharing our conversations and discussions with each other, answering questions from other people. Because when people ask us questions and we share the best thought we can with them, and it also gets us thinking too at the same time. So we definitely appreciate it when people share their input, and because there's people that come at us with, well, but what it is, but we love our conversations, and for having us on tonight. This is the first time we've gotten together in a while, because like that, we haven't had an open podcast in a while. Even though in the last week or two I was going to, but like I said earlier, I was always too tired to really get it going. But here we are tonight. So,
and I'm so excited. So, I was scared there for a minute. I was like, "Oh no, where's Daniel?"
I would have got on here one way or another.
Right. And then the number that called in was totally different than the one I was looking at or the one that Nikki had. But I'm so glad we're together, and I'm hearing your guys' different experiences. And like you said, having an experience doesn't make it true for everyone else. It's a personal experience, and it's hard to find that evidence to put it in the books. And it's funny. In Washington State, for the state atlas, they actually have Sasquatch in there as a creature from that state, which is very interesting that a state would do that. It's also, there's laws that also protect it in that state, which is very interesting as well. If it doesn't exist, how could you have a law that protects it?
Right. Now, there's other states that actually put in the books that do acknowledge it, but they don't really have protective laws. But for example, upstate New York, Whitehall, New York, they do acknowledge the existence. They have something, I can't remember exactly what they have on record. But also here in Virginia, the town of Norton, Virginia, which actually they did put a public document out that it is a recognized species out of Norton, Virginia, but that does not settle it with the rest of the state and the government, and therefore there's no protective laws. But I find it very interesting. It's actually encouraging to know that there is places that are acknowledging it. But until they're able to put it down in the books and put it down as a species, which I believe if it becomes a worldwide acknowledgement or discovery, there's a lot of us that believe that it should be protected because it is a rare thing. We know they're really good at hiding, but at the same time they're not as populated as I would say a bear. Bears. We have a lot of bears here in Virginia, but at the same time, bears are very, could be very elusive at the same time, among other animals. But it's more common for people to see a bear cross the road than they are going to see a Bigfoot. So I guess where I'm getting at again is where if Bigfoot was to become acknowledged, it would have to be a protected species because you're going to have your lunatics out there wanting to go shoot one and bag one and mount. Hey, look what I got. So there's people that out there that want to declare it and prove it to be, a protected species because they want to say it's human. Then again, that's going back to where we would have to prove that. They would have to actually have a body, and as many people don't want to hear that, that's what it's going to come down to. Is a body will be needed, one way or another, regardless if somebody happens to accidentally stumble across the remains one, which is probably like finding a needle in a haystack I don't know, on the other side of the world somewhere. I don't know, but
yeah, and you saying that just reminded me of when there were fires in, I believe it was California, Oregon, so on and so forth. There were people that had witnessed helicopters with nets carrying out what looked like a hairy humanoid creature or creatures. So that's very interesting as well.
I'm familiar with that.
Exactly. I remember that. Yes.
Nikki in the chat room was asking, Daniel, do you believe that Bigfoot could be interdimensional?
I'm going to put it like this. Nikki, are you the one in the chat room?
No, it's somebody else, but she spells her name the same way I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll put it to you this way. I'm going to come right now. I'm going to say no because there's a few rare people that might claim that. First of all, wake up, come out of your dream, or stop taking what you're taking to see these things. But I personally don't believe that. One simple reason I will say that if Bigfoot was if they could go from dimension to dimension, I think that the world somewhere would know something of that. But as far as Bigfoot, people want. All right, this is one thing. Let me try to explain this one. People like for those who do believe this, I believe this has become a created theory or thought or of the imagination because people want to come up with something to explain what they don't understand. For example, why can't we find Bigfoot? Why do we see tracks that happen to stop? So people are going to start coming up with it. People don't understand what is known patterns. A bear track. Bear tracks are commonly mistaken as Bigfoot tracks because people don't study these things. People don't observe this. People don't get out in the field enough to observe and understand these things. You don't always have to necessarily get out in the field to learn about these things. You could look at a book if you're disabled. If you're not able to get out there, there's books. And there's some people out there that say you can't learn nothing from a book. Well, bull doo-doo. There's a lot you can learn from a book because I do a lot of studying out of the field as well as in the field. So yeah, to understand nature, you need to just get out there and observe. And you're not going to learn everything all in one day, but just being out there, you will learn a lot just from being out there and feeling nature and letting your senses go to work. But I'm sorry for the long, drawn-out explanation behind that. But no, I don't believe in interdimensional alone. People don't understand.
They're in league with it as far as fairies, which is pretty interesting to be in league with fairies. Bigfoot is kind of like the muscle, while the Fae is the brain. But, I mean, there's so many different theories. It's hard to pin it down because we don't have evidence. But it's pretty interesting.
Well, one thing I've always shared with people as far as observing Bigfoot, and this is where, all right, I can
Fae
environment be gone, not seen, but they're still there. And I believe, just like, Bigfoot, like you even mentioned it, that even Bigfoot, when they're in the woods, that's their environment. They know how to blend and survive in their environment. I mean, I could even use deer, for example. I walked up on deer so close, never knew they were there till they jolted, And it just depends on the time of year as well. Time of year, like with the deer, their hair, their fur changes color, it's a natural occurrence. They blend in with their own natural environment. And, a lot of people kind of neglect that, or kind of lack of, they have a lack of realizing that. So yeah, I believe that, it depends. They're in their own natural environment, that's their home, and we're limited to what we know about it, even though we know a lot, but there's a lot that we don't understand. And I think maybe in time we will start understanding and learning a few more things. But I just feel like I personally feel like we got to be careful what we want to believe, unless it's something that we personally observed ourselves. Again, that goes back to, hey, if I saw this happen, that's my story. It doesn't prove nothing. So,
well, on that note, we're going to go on our first musical break. And on this break, we have Mystique with I Want It All, Rampage, and then Prime Example with Dancing Machine. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break.
Yeah, okay. I want it all. Even if you're stepping out of bounds, keep balling. I want it all. Diamonds and cars. Building big yachts, close up the stars. Buying the bars. Own it is ours. I want it all. Big or small. No more of a downfall. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. Like the sign your baseball. Money making it rain fall on a big mall. Owning the whole block. Driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get up out this box. I want it all. I always knew that I would be rich, don't doubt for a minute. Speaking to resistance, hoping and feeling to give away $1 million. Just be chilling in the tallest building. Say hello to the mission and vision with me. Hello. Watch cars about 150 Rolex diamond luxury city. Next to Movado, motto cocked before the arrival. Lamborghini with bass high, I could hear it all. Sit back, sun roof up, is the stars. High performance cars, super saloon, exclusive rims spinning hard. Always wanted to build a park, obstacles to enter. A lot more for the kids, recreation centers. I want it all. Red bricks, cream coated, paint, marble fountain as I pass. Walking the stone path, heated pool, home theater for all of my family. Wanna do it for my city. Can't wait to see the chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. I want it all. Diamonds and cars, building big yachts, close up the stars. Buying the bars, own it is ours. I want it all. Big or small, no more of a downfall. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. Like the sign your baseball. Money making it rain fall on a big mall. Owning the whole block, driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get up out this box. I want it all. I'm inside of a dungeon, life involves repercussions. Could vista consequences leave me boxed up, feeling suction. How could this bad mistake have me thinking ways to escape? Catching the case, wanting it all has been replaced. Look at a cellmate face, I know they can't relate. Trust in the soul, heck no, it's to stay safe. Up in the place where my food is cold on my plate. It ain't no breaks, it's a time to concentrate. Watching my back, got stabbed by too many snakes. Who times dragged against the bars is the rude away. Mind race, body cold, hard to embrace. embrace. The situation made me think, why did I miss the hate? And common sense of being solved in so many ways. During the problem thoughts, I forgot I want it all. Forgot I had a dream to rule it, forgot to remember that all my fans had a thought that I can have it all. I want it all, staring at the walls, walking down the halls, wait for my collect call, supposed to be at a concert hall. Instead, I want it all behind bars, can't reach for a star. It's a fear, I want it all. 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 Diamonds and cars, building big yards, close up the stars, buying the bars, on it is ours, I want it all, big or small, no more of a downfall, I want it all, diamonds and cars, building big yards, close up the stars, buying the bars, on it is ours, I want it all, big or small, no more of a downfall, I want it all. I want it all, I want it all. I can sign your baseball. Money making it rainfall on the big mall. Owning the whole block, driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get about this bodice. I want it all. Mystique, mystique.
Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. You people fire well, I'm the kind that made you inspire. Smoke detector can't take the battery is what I require.
They're literally
Fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Hey, it's swag. I done got back in my bag. I done had people laugh. I done seen people pass. I spaz like spaz. The garbage man and they trash. This of course I can't crash. This a race and I'm fast. I pass the fate and put all of it last. Dragon so I clash. I hide it all in the stash. We are diamonds, they are brass. I'm connected with no lag. She a spin 34 bag. That's my wife and I'm glad. Michael Myers with his stabs. Ali with his jabs. A scientist in the lab. JJ Watt in his past. The amigos with the dab. This is why I rap. And I got the nag. Spazzy roll the sack with Mystique in the back. Money tall like Shaq. Weapons like Iraq. I am cancer in a pack. The 9/11 attack. We don't know no slag. You can't hold us back. Rock and roll with that. So much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got By the way, little mama, can we be friends? I can't let this night just end. I really wanna know if I can see you again. Give me your number, we'll get back on the scene. We can hit another club if that's your thing. We'll be partners in crime, you and me, as we ripping up floors like two dancing machines.
Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have ECBRO, which is the East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. Welcome back to Daniel, Baldemar, and Nikki. So great to have you guys on tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And we were just discussing on the break that several people are having issues with the sound. Everything looks fine here, and I haven't heard anything cutting out. But if you do have issues, sometimes Spreaker acts up. Just refresh it. We do have other platforms you can listen on as well. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. So if Spreaker is acting up, make sure you try one of those venues so you're not missing a thing. All right, so we were talking about Bigfoot and how some people think that it's an intergalactic or whatnot species. I don't think so. I think it's always been here. Where would you guys like to go from here? Like, what is one of the most exciting hunts that you guys have been on?
Exciting hunts. I'll give an example. This morning, I went up there and I actually killed a buck this morning. And right now, I have it at a family member's house. And I was actually explaining that I was actually doing this certain show tonight. And so they were calling me up and laughing. And I'm going, "What's going on?" He goes, "Man, you should hear. It's been here very, very, very long time, and Native American people know this, and so that's why we never go out at night. We just normally stayed. In the daytime is basically our time, and at night it's basically theirs. And why can't we get any clear photos of Bigfoot is because they're super fast. Because there's sometimes you have to have the right shutter speed, the right camera. Have to set in the right, because there's sometimes when you see it, it does something to you. I had this gentleman that actually didn't see one Bigfoot, actually saw two in broad daylight. Had binoculars on his chest. And he was saying that the animal was so fast that he couldn't pick up the binoculars fast enough to go see this animal, especially these two animals. And can you imagine try to pick up a camera and photograph, and the only thing you can see is something blurry? Because in order for us to take a real good clean photo of it, we just have to catch it at the right time and and also in the right moment.
Another thing that's cool with technology these days and having a camera on your phone, there is the setting where you can hold the button and instead of just taking one picture, it'll take a plethora of pictures. And I try to do that because sometimes my pictures don't turn out so clear, so I'll just take a bunch of them all at once and then pick the clearest one out of that. But like you said, it moves so fast, it's hard to get a clear picture.
Right.
It goes. I had another eyewitness that actually said that it covered a quarter of a mile like it's nothing. And but the thing is, this animal's super fast, it's super intelligent. I personally believe, it's more human-like than it is an ape. Just by the characteristics of it and how smart they are and how they pronounce the vowels A, E, I, O, and U. And then the only thing that could do that, is an animal that has a chin like a human does. And the Bigfoot, has to have a chin like this in order for it to produce these certain vowels, to certain sound. So.
Well, there's a couple of movies I recently watched, and they're sci-fi, fictional type movies, and I watched both of them. One movie is called The Sighting, and the other one is called Savage. The movie The Sighting, for a low budget movie, it was okay. It was okay, but in that movie, now a couple different things I noticed in the movie is, where it shows the way the Bigfoots kind of stand together to ambush, the people that entered into their territory. A couple of little small things. I was like, okay, well, this looks like I understand where people get their ideas for their designs on their T-shirts and or the vocalization. Like in the movie The Sighting, now I have to ask myself, I said, who came up with the idea to use that vocal? The vocal that I shared with you, Tessa, that recording, in the movie The Sighting, the vocals that the Sasquatch are making in that movie are actually almost very identical to what I sent you. Now, it makes you think, like, who came up with that? Who used that idea to use that sound? It was, as far as I know, the movie's not based on any kind of true events or anything. Like, unlike the movie Exist, that was based off of true events, and the vocals used on that were supposedly from alleged Sasquatch vocals. As far as I know, I don't know anything about the vocals that were used in the movie The Sighting that I watched. But, and then some of the things that they do, how they have hidden caves that, on the mountainside or hillside, it makes you wonder where, hey, there are things that we don't know about, because it's not our terrain. We don't know every inch and every covered up hole that might be out there. It makes you really wonder.
Yep.
So again, keep in mind, as I'm talking about these movies, even though they're just movies, they also got me really thinking. And as far as the movie Savage, it was the way that watching it move. It showed a guy driving down the forest road in his pickup truck. And if you're not paying attention, you won't see it. But over in the woods on the opposite side of him, you could see a glimpse of a Sasquatch running. And then next just a few seconds later, they get pushed off the road. And next the Sasquatch is right beside the truck, pushing it over. But, it kind of makes you think they maybe, even though this is, again, I have to stress this is just a movie, but it kind of gives you an idea. It makes you think, like what Baldemar was saying, they must be super fast. To me, it would make sense, they don't wear shoes like we do. They're accustomed to, that's natural for them to be barefoot, so that's what gives them the wide, big feet, Now, if you get tribal people that are out in the, that are barefoot all the time, their feet are going to be a little bit wider because they're not shaped and formed like ours, because we wear shoes that have arches and, and different shapes. So our feet kind of get used to that. Look at a young child. When a child's born, most of their feet are flat, because they haven't been able to stand and start walking and wearing shoes like we do, So all these different things, a lot of different things get you thinking, make you wonder. And I mean, look at some of the tracks we found. I found tracks. Most of my tracks were usually flat feet. They look like they're completely flat. Some of them, yes, some of them do have some shape where it shows like what people describe as a mid-tarsal break, or better yet put by Dr. Jeff Meldrum. He corrected that. He more calls it the flexation. Yeah, the flexation of the foot instead of the mid-tarsal break. But a lot of people still refer to it as the mid-tarsal break. Again, it's more of the flexation of the foot. Like as we would call it, the ball of the foot, between the ball and the heel, So I don't know. Just all these different things really get your mind thinking if you watch and pay attention to everything,
Well, and like you're saying, they're movies, but just because they're movies doesn't mean somebody that wrote this didn't have an experience or ideals about it.
Well, exactly.
And having flat feet, like, when I was in boot camp, my arches started falling. Unless you have something to keep that from happening, you will have flat feet again, depending on how you've used your feet, so on and so forth. I mean, when I was a kid, you couldn't keep shoes on me. I was always running around barefoot and basically clothesless, but just imagine all the terrain and such that they're traveling and not having footwear, so on and so forth. They just walk on their feet without any sort of support. But there was a question in the chat room here from Jason, and he's wondering, do you think that Bigfoot is man-made as far as perhaps a thought form or in a laboratory, so on and so forth? What are your thoughts?
No.
There's no way, yeah.
No way.
There's no way.
No way.
There was no laboratories hundreds of years ago, when reports were first starting to become documented. I mean, I think, if correct, Baldemar or Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the oldest report from here in North America alone was from Leif Erikson, a well-known explorer, was also known as a Viking, who actually there was a story of him and his men encountering some wild, crazy-looking, savage-looking beasts. From what they described, there were wild people, as they described, more like something that they've never seen before, And some people try to rule that off as, well, maybe they were seeing Native Americans, that could have been dressed up in animal hairs. But that's the oldest record that I know of. As far as then, you could go back in the, I believe, 17 and 1800s, where people were starting to see things, But as far as we know, there was no laboratory that created such a thing. But there's records, reports all over the country. All over the world. In Asia, and in Russia, and all these different locations have their own similar reports. Yeah, they might be smaller, shorter, taller, but whatever. And but no, as far as I'm concerned, it's not created. It's not an imagination. For those who've never seen one, and don't believe, I like to challenge you to prove to us that they don't exist, because they're seen. People are seeing them, and they are leaving behind physical tracks, physical evidence. Now, science is not going to accept foot tracks. When we've come across these tracks out in the woods, that's our evidence. That's our physical evidence. Science is not going to accept that. Maybe later down the road, when certain protocol and certain steps are taken to ensure that, maybe to start backing up some of these. But that's me. So, Baldemar could probably give you some history, as far as things he knows about there, so.
Yes, again, so Native Americans, Bigfoot was the guardian of the forest, and we knew that he was always there. And so we, it was, again, how I said it earlier, the nighttime was his night, his time. And the daytime was ours, and it was an agreement that they've had for hundreds and hundreds of years, and probably even thousands of years. But again, we always respected them, and we knew that they were around. And then until the Europeans came into our world, and then so they always wanted to find the answers to the unknown. That's why I believe that it's going to be a very long time until we actually find the proof that we need. I don't believe that we actually need a body. I don't believe that. Since our technology is getting a lot better, more advanced, it's just a matter of time until we actually prove that it was real. I know that people actually have, I can't say 100% on your show or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that somebody out there knows the truth. And and also too, there's some scientists that also say that in order for you to prove Bigfoot is real, is to prove that he's not. So but here we're just trying to prove that it's real, and it's up to us to educate the public. It's what we're doing tonight. We're talking about our experiences, and we're trying to make believers out of everybody. The best way to keep this thing going is just to educate the public. Come into those newspapers, go into the news media. I've done so many interviews. Now here in some little town in Berkeley, Texas, they have a Bigfoot burger now. Even down the parades, they have somebody dressed up as Bigfoot, coming up there. And that's a little stuff that we actually started down here in South Central Texas. And people now start telling their stories about what happened to their grandfather and stuff that happened to their grandmother. Why do you put foil paper in your windows? Because we don't want this monster looking through your window. Little things like that. And anything, and there's sometimes, again, they don't talk about it. And now slowly they're starting to talk about exactly what happened to them, to their experiences, and the experiences what their elders went through or their kids went through, and stuff that they actually seen. Again, it's now they're starting to talk about it now, and I applaud you for having us here, like that we can actually educate the public upon what actually is going on today.
Yeah, another thing I'll throw in there real quick, and for anyone who may be a non-believer or even a skeptic, I believe it's safe to say this now. And well, actually, it's true, but I believe by saying what I'm going to say, it should give people should give this consideration, regardless if you believe Bigfoot's human or if you believe he's some form of ape. Well, giants have been proven. We got giant skeletons. There's remains of giants. People have. There's been discovered, but also it's also been proven that giant apes once existed too. Regardless if you believe Bigfoot is some form of descendant or a branch of Gigantopithecus, which was once proven to exist. Gigantopithecus was believed to be a giant orangutan form of ape, which 12 to 14 feet tall. And then again, we got humans, giant skeletons that belong to giants. So that's something to look at. There's different steps to look at. Different things, different sides of theories, and there's all kinds of little things you could consider that actually might get you actually thinking. I say, so it just it might just get you thinking and make you curious enough to want to do some research and look into some of this stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in the Ice Age, and there's different tribes of different types of humans. There's Homo neanderthalis, Homo naledi, Homo luzonensis, habilis, florensis, erectus, sapiens. Mm-hmm. There's so many different variations, and there's so many different things as far as tribes back then where they intermingled or mated, which led to these different Homo species. It has been said that certain different tribes mated with each other, and perhaps that's where Bigfoot came from. They're just so different than us. They've always kind of stayed to themselves and in the woods and never tried to advance like we did. They'd rather be, like you said, the protectors of the forest. That's their home. That's where they'd prefer to be. It's really sad that we're taking away a lot of that, not only because that's their home, but that also helps us to breathe. But there's so many different things it could be, and they could be around forever. And like you said, giants for the longest time were unproven until they were.
Right. I mean, and some of the things you just mentioned, there's a possibility that there could have been some interbreeding with, somewhere along the lines back in the, and the offspring of all the interbreeding started populating. Maybe they kept populating through more interbreeding. We don't know this, but another thing I like to consider too, on my side of things, where I believe Bigfoot is some form of undiscovered ape of some sort. So a lot of the eyewitness descriptions report a lot of primate characteristics. Yes, they describe a lot of human type characteristics, but at the same time, there's a lot of little things I look at as far as the behaviors and also physical traits, things like long arms, elongated, skulls, and stuff like that. What's the word? Got the elongated, the forehead and all that, but then also long arms that hang down below their knees. A lot of primates, several primates have the long arms. But there's a lot of little things I like to point out. It makes me believe or think that they are somewhere along there. But then again, hey, like I said, it could have been some kind of interbreeding somewhere with humans along the way, because there's a lot of theories with that. That people, that's where people take. That's why they believe it could be some type of human. I mean, they do have a lot of intelligence. Both species, as far as when I say both species, either human. We have a lot of intelligence. We've come a long way, through the years, and we advanced over the years. That's the thing. What gets me is that us as human, because as human primates, according to science, we're human primates. We advance. We have the mentality. We have the ability to continue to advance and evolve mentally. It makes you wonder if Bigfoot was some type of human, what's stopping them from, mentally evolving, advancing through, Bigfoot to be seen all across the country. I mean, are they all collaborating in one way or another? Say, hey, we're going to remain this way. We're not going to advance to the modern technology. We're not going to build houses. We're not going to make fires. It makes you wonder, if they are humans, why are they limited? Why are they, to me, I feel like they're limiting themselves. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways to really deep down and really get deep and think about a lot of little details. Why would they remain this way? If they are a human, what I'm saying? They, it's safe to say they are very intelligent. I mean, they're really great at eluding us, staying away from us and staying hidden, although people are seeing them, But I know one person I interviewed myself some years back was, I'm having a brain fart. Her name was right on she's an archaeologist. Nikki, do you know who I'm referring to? It's been a while. She was Kathy Strain. I'm sorry, there it is. Kathy Strain. Very, very wise woman. And she pointed there's a lot of little things that she pointed out, because she claims to have had some sightings. And especially for her to come out and share that, and being in her professional field as an archaeologist and everything, in the public, in her fish, kind of a public figure in her field, she shared a lot of different, bits and pieces of information that kind of get you thinking too. So, everybody has their input in the way they look at things. So, I mean, there's a lot of little things I think about, a lot. I don't always come out and share them, but on occasions I do.
Well, you're more than welcome to share them here. Nikki was wondering about David Paulides. he been discussed, which we haven't discussed him tonight. And she said specifically him talking about actual evidence. They had a gnome study, I don't know what that word is, something on Sasquatch, testing on Sasquatch. Perhaps she could call in.
Say that again?
She's talking about the genome project that was done by Melba Ketchum. And,
oh my!
Okay, there was no space.
They're claiming, okay, but you got to listen to this one, because what happened here is that Melba Ketchum did the DNA study, cut corners, did not do the study properly, okay, and nobody would peer review her evidence, okay. She went and there was speculation that she actually went and bought a journal just to peer review her own work to get it out there.
Which was
That's
wrong.
Not right. That's wrong. Okay, no. That to me that makes her not credible. And that study may have been a good study, but it ended up having a lot of things that were shady involved with that project in my eyes. I mean, you want to also look that everybody's seen the photos of the Chewy Bigfoot. Do you know what I'm referring to? It's a Bigfoot, a sleeping Bigfoot in the
yes, that was the
bushes.
I know you.
And they're 2 feet away from a sleeping Bigfoot, and the face is a mask of a Chewbacca costume.
Yep.
They freaking found the costume head on eBay or Amazon or somewhere. And they were so close, but they didn't film it walking away. They didn't film it getting there. There's no other filming other than this 2 minutes of a Bigfoot sleeping in that bush or whatever it was. And a lot of good people got involved in that and got, screwed, in that whole incident. So now we've got David Paulides, who wants to support Ketchum because he had some DNA evidence, but I was hoping that his evidence wasn't through Ketchum, and I haven't really gone through and sorted out through where he has actually done or who he had going through his DNA, but because he has supposedly has new evidence in regards to some DNA, because he had a lot of DNA evidence in hair and whatever he had, but I don't know yet. Do you know, David? Daniel?
First of all, I want to make mention. Well, I know as far as the Bigfoot image of the Chewbacca. Yet. No, I don't think so. But Matilda was the name that you're referring to. That's what they declared the name of the Bigfoot, which is was clearly a Chewbacca, thing. Because I'm looking at it right now. I just pulled it up.
It's famous.
Yeah, and as it goes, it says
news conferences and everything about it.
Yeah.
And what happened with it? It went right down the toilet because credibility got thrown out because she skipped steps.
Well, there's a lot of different factors we could throw in there, but here's the fun ones that discredit her in the whole situation. And there's people that are gonna not think about this, and they're gonna deny it because the people that are defending her are the ones that donated lots of money, and that's why they're going to follow her, because she robbed a lot of people. People donated to her because they believed in her, like she was god of the Bigfoot world, and so she made out with a lot of money from a lot of gullible people. And as like I said, as far as the DNA and everything, the whole project was, like, as Nikki said, she said it clear as day. It was in other words, it was basically half-assed. The sequences weren't complete. And they were never finished. The peer review team went AWOL, and now, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to what David Paulides is doing, but there's people that are still going to defend her because they thought she was onto something. Now, for the record, when she first came out and said she was going to do this, hey, I was excited. I was like, yeah, all right, we got somebody that's going to look into this, And then, I mean, there's a lot of other little stupid things I could throw out there. I mean, just to please her crowd and her following, she was posting blurry, dark, smudgy images of. It didn't even look like a shape of a humanoid. I mean, I seen her. She used to post a lot of stuff, a lot of crazy crap just to please her followers, just to keep them coming, But yeah, if anyone's been paying attention, where's she at now? Why is there,
she's not in the scene anymore at all.
Yep, she went AWOL because she knows that she. Up, so.
Yeah, she was fudging the evidence and, trying to keep that food wagon coming in. It's all about the money for a lot of people, and it ruins it for the rest of us. But as far as the government, there's so many things that they keep from us. And, as a part of the government for a little while, as far as military, and that's one of the things I swore I'd never do. But due to certain circumstances, I felt like that was my only option. But you learn so much more about all the things that they keep from us. And, they came in, like I said, with the fires, forest fires, took out these hairy humanoids that were dead, burnt. They have the DNA. They know they exist, just like UFOs, aliens, so on and so forth. For some reason, they're just keeping it from us, which I don't understand. It makes me feel like they're treating us like children. We should be privy to this information. What is it going to hurt? Our heads aren't going to explode. Maybe a few of us will run around like chickens with our heads cut off, but for the most part, this is information that's not going to hurt us. I don't think, but perhaps they're afraid everybody's going to go out and try to look for them and maybe harm them. I don't know what their thing is going on there, but I know they have the DNA.
I think it has a lot to do with the way our society is running right now. And the fact that, look what happened on the West Coast with the owls when they started logging up there in Washington. And you had that spotted owl that was protected, and it just threw everything off over there, with the logging and everything. And if these creatures come to light scientifically and everything, where we know where they are, they already know where they are. You can't herd them into reservations like we did the Native Americans. We can't tell them where to go and where not to go. They're going to do exactly what they've been doing for hundreds of years. And we're going to get a lot of crazies on our end who are going to go out there and try to shoot them and cause a lot of chaos. So it fits the public's best interest if the government keeps it squashed like they did with, all the UFO stuff. And now that is starting to come out little by little. Started with the Blue Book, and then now it's coming out with more stuff in Area 51 and all this other stuff. So I think eventually it probably will come to see light, but who knows how long that process is going to take.
Right. And that's a good stance on that, and I didn't even think of that as far as the logging industry. These owls caused a big uproar. What's going to happen when Bigfoot, is discovered, or everybody knows about it? Are they going to
be made an endangered species? We don't know. Right. How are they going to do the population for this group? How are they going to study it? How, they're elusive to begin with. I'm come from the stance where there's a lot less in the world, or let's just say in North America or in the United States, than say Daniel or, some other people in the Bigfoot community who think there's very high numbers, that they're very successful breeders, and there's tons of them out there, and we're just not seeing them because, there's millions and millions of white-tailed deer, and we don't see them running around everywhere. So, but I don't. I think they're fewer in numbers. Maybe that, we're seeing the same ones, and they're crossing greater distances. We don't know. Although there are people who say they know because they live in their backyard. We just don't have that proof.
Yeah.
So.
And, and Nikki spoke very clear on that. She made a good point. And to add to that, as far as what she made mention, how when the spotted owl was discovered, which happened in 1981. When that was declared an endangered species, like she said, it shut down. It basically, all the logging industry came to a cease. Well, as far as here on the East Coast, here's another thing that a lot of your authorities will deny, even though they're highly reported and people have seen them. Here's a known species that people that they don't want you to know that they're in national parks. People report seeing mountain lions, cougars, panther, whatever. They're all the same. But I seen a black panther across the road in my research area, which is part of a national forest. And there's been reports in the other parts of the state forest and other, national forests, et cetera, et cetera. But when people have called in and reported them, this is what I've been told, because I actually put a blog on this, and people actually were messaging me directly, and some responded to my blog. But anyway, they were told, no, you didn't see what you said you saw. Blah blah blah. They're, that's how it goes. And part of it is if they start acknowledging and they put it on public record. Oh yeah, there's mountain lions here in the national forest. There's mountain, here in the, all these different on these national parks. If people learn of this, and they're going to start going into a frenzy. They're going to start freaking out. And if people stop going into these national parks out of fear of maybe coming across a mountain lion, something that could be aggressive and attack them, they're not going to go. And what happens when they don't go? There's going to be money that's being lost. So, economically speaking, it's going to, people, the town and the revenue is going to drop and everything else. People are going to lose money. And that's one thing why a lot of authority are either local governments, state governments, and so forth. When it gets into the bigger governments, yeah, it's all going to snowball, if you understand where, yeah, people are going to get scared. So that's a big part of it too. They're going to get scared, so there's going to be fear. And then of course the economic side of things as well. So, does the government know? I'm sure they do. But do they, at the same time, maybe they don't even care. But, there's people believe, the government knows. So what if they do, But it's going to take a lot to really, get the word out there and prove regardless if they exist or not. Because, first of all, you got to get science on your side. Number one, that's going to be a challenge because I will tell you this much and this much I know. And anyone that's involved in science, mainstream science, they know this as a fact that the government, a lot of these science-based laboratories and everything, they're all government funded. So there's the challenge right there. Good luck. Have a great day, and just leave your story and go with it.
Well, here we have mountain lions all over the place, and even here in the small town of Bayfield, there's a pair of them that have been spotted running around and getting people's dogs, so on and so forth. People still go out. And generally when you see one, there's another one, because they generally go in pairs. But then you mentioned the Black Panther, which is basically a cousin or whatnot to the mountain lion. It's just another color. They deny that those exist in the United States, but when I was in Arkansas on the pig trail, not once but twice, I saw a black panther on the side of the road. And it was near where all the trails were that people would hike and walk. My brother has seen it. My sister has seen it. There are black panthers in the United States, but for some reason they want to deny.
Okay, I gotta jump up on this one. Black panthers are normally found in Africa, and what are these black panthers doing here in Africa, here in the United States? Some of them must have gotten free from some place and everything like that, but they're not common here in actually in North America, which is true. And then we've actually seen one down here, and actually seen one here in South Texas. Maybe it was actually around 2 months ago when we actually spotted one, and we actually talked to a scientist. We talked to a scientist about the Black Panther, and comes up and he goes, well, and he gave me a whole bunch of trail cameras, and he comes up, he goes, Mr. Galvan, if you spot this animal again, if you catch it with on video or you catch it, something or something like that, just I would like to see it. Because these animals are actually common in Africa, and what are they doing down here? And there's also too that the jaguar is actually starting to make a comeback here in the United States again, and they're also a dark colored animal as well. And there's sometimes also too is that people are starting to misidentify the jaguars coming in here to a black panther. So I personally did not see it. I know some family members that did, and they came out like around 50 yards from them, and three people actually saw it, and so they basically all three concurred that it was a big old black cat. And then came back to mind. He goes, "Well, was it a jaguar?" And then so that was one thing. Now what we're going to try to figure out if it was actually a black cat or a jaguar.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is you'll have the black coat, but you see the spots through the coat when you shine a light or the sun hits it or whatnot. When our headlights were hitting this black panther, you didn't see any spots. It was just pure black with the bright yellow eyes. And
wow.
there was no denying that it was a black panther. Could this be some sort of genetic mutation of a mountain lion? Because they're basically the same, just a different color. Who knows?
They are a subspecies.
Yeah, and it could be, somebody decided as an exotic pet that they wanted to get a black panther. But how does that explain all the places that it's seen? I mean, they can procreate and so on and so forth, but how do they get so spread out? I guess it happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, they've been reported on numerous times here in the Virginia alone. I mean, I'm not familiar too much in the surrounding states, although other mountain lions have been seen in Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee. But I know just as far as the black panther alone, I know besides me, there's other people that have come forward and said they've seen the black ones here in Virginia, and some of the locations where they've seen them are not all too far off from where I've seen mine. But at the same time, yeah, there's some miles in between there, here and there, but on the main, we have Interstate 64 that runs a good ways through here. They've been seen there, black ones. The brown tan ones have been seen in surrounding areas, and some of them on farm in the western part of the farms. But so it's interesting to hear about these things. And it makes you wonder because like they're the black panther or the puma. They're more common down in Florida. Did they over a period of time populate and expand up north? That's a possibility. I don't know that, but it makes it's a good thought.
For right. Sure. It's definitely interesting. Jason was wondering in the chat room, going back to Bigfoot and the owls and so on with the forest. He's wondering, were the owls just a way to secure land where Bigfoot supposedly lived? So basically using the owl as an excuse.
I would say no, because dealing with a spotted owl, it was basically more in one certain area, and so that's because spotted owls are basically found like in the like mountainous areas and stuff, and Bigfoot has been seen basically everywhere. I never ever in my million years did I ever thought that I would ever see a Bigfoot here in South Texas. Texas here is hot. I had so many different things. When I actually saw mine, a lot of things came to see. There's sometimes also too is once you see a Bigfoot and stuff like that, there, I talk about it quite a bit, and there's sometimes it's like a disease basically. And you always want to talk about it, and you want to talk to people about it, and then people talk to you about it, and it's a big, and it comes something like takes over your life a little bit. And there's sometimes too is I'm glad to have a fiance that basically accepts that, but there's sometimes also too when we have to step back and say, you know what, we need to step back a little bit from Bigfoot instead of working and into our personal lives, because once you see it and everything like that, it does something to you. I basically call it Bigfootitis, because it's something that we just can't forget.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. It
kinda
definitely, like I said, a big
ahead.
passion. Oh yeah, no, that's all I was saying. It just it becomes a passion. It's just something that you're just really drawn into it because like us, it's part of our nature. We're curious. We want to know more. It's like we want to know what they are. I don't know. It's just fascinating. It's like us going to a magic show. We want to see what kind of tricks come up. It's something. It's fun to observe. But yeah, I mean, we can imagine that they're dangerous, but we still, some of us want to keep seeing them or want to learn more. And then again, you got those that have seen them and say, I don't want to ever see one again, or blah blah blah. Well, I mean, that's them. That's everybody has a fear of something, or whatever. But so.
Well, River
Yep.
was also saying here in Oklahoma we have panthers and they screech like women in distress. It's freaky sounding, and that's how a mountain lion or any sort of cougar does. One of my dad's freakiest experiences that he said, he was sitting reading a book and it sounded like a woman was screaming for her life outside, and they lived in the middle of nowhere, so he got in his car and left. I don't think it was actually a woman. I think it was a cougar or mountain lion or whatever it could be, some sort of panther.
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting, the different species that we're constantly finding, and some things that are somewhat warped, like the antelope that was found with gills on its snout. Like, there's so many
Correct.
variations and so many different things that are out there that we don't know about, and all these different cryptids. I'm so glad that there's people out there investigating this so we can find out what's in our world. I mean, we're exploring space. We need to explore our Earth a lot more deeply and intently.
Well, with that being said, could I jump in there real quick?
Certainly.
And well, this kind of goes to the say, how you mentioned that we need to explore this world, the Earth more. Well, this brings me to the question that a lot of people ask, and I'll go ahead and throw it out there for everybody, and I'll throw my 2 cents in there, and Baldemar, Nikki, you got to jump in there too. But then one of the main questions that's asked when it comes to finding Bigfoot, well, with today's technology and everything that we have, why haven't we found one yet? Okay, here's the thing. Yeah, we have this technology, and has it been used to try to look for a Bigfoot? Sure. But how often? It's like, it's no different than me and you walking through the woods. I could go out and spend a whole week out in the woods and not see a Bigfoot. Here's another example. There's people that have been looking for a Bigfoot and been dedicated their lives to finding Bigfoot for 40, 50 years. I spoke to people that have been in the woods. They're looking for Bigfoot for 40 to 50 years and never seen one. And on the other hand, I've spoke to them and said, well, I've seen one in my 40 years. The guy that's been out there longer has never seen one. So with today's technology, if people want to spend the money to put it out there, so be it. But it's going to take time. If Bigfoot's roaming the forest, if he's out in the open, out of his element, if he's just going for a stroll, you might get lucky if that drone is out there looking for him. But the thing is, the technology is not being used to look for him. Yeah, people own personal drones, but you got to cover a wider area and spend more time doing it. It's just because we have that technology doesn't mean it's being used to look for them. Trail cameras. People say, "Oh, Bigfoot knows what a trail camera is." Well, who taught him? I mean, I could get into some things, and it could get me into a rant on certain things. But
have you ever smelled
gets
electricity, or perhaps he can hear like the high pitched, electric sound that's coming off of it, and that's how they know that it's there?
Well,
I don't know.
Some trail cameras, from my experience, some trail cameras, even I can hear it go off. If you walk in front of a trail camera, it'll either click or I've actually heard some like make a quick little hum sound, but a lot of them make a click. If it's a cheap camera. But hey, the thing is, I'm getting in front of it, and it's causing a camera. Yeah, a lot of the newer technology, a lot of your newer cameras, they're so advanced. some of them are actually made with invisible light, where they don't use infrared. The Browning, for anyone who's familiar with trail cameras, the Browning company makes one. They make a series called the Dark Op series, and they're very inexpensive. They're about about $115 or so, give or take. But those ones, I would recommend them out of a lot of them. But they're small, compact, and they use invisible flash, and they're very quiet. But yeah, some cameras do make sounds, but really, how good is Bigfoot's hearing? We don't know. We're just assuming and just making up excuses because, hey, well, we can't catch him on a camera. He must hear it a mile away. Like, let's not go that way. Or some people say, well, hey, Bigfoot takes a stick and waves it in front of the camera. That's, again, where is he learning how to do this? How does he know what, people giving Bigfoot too much credit, and it's kind of sickening sometimes because, they come up with the most absurd things, and it makes you want to just smack them in the back of the head. And call him a big dummy like Lamont and Fred Sanford.
You're like, come on. Well, on that note, you guys, I hate to interrupt, but we do have to go to our second break. So to all our listeners, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? Get ready. It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
The funniest memory that I could recall is getting up to sharpen my pencil as a kid, showing off my new outfit from head to toe. Yo, I love the life of 3 9-year-olds with hyper goals. My mind be blown. Don't get upset when the answer's wrong. Pray for strength and you'll survive to be strong. I am a teacher, is how I define myself. Help me vibe so well. Don't stress, do your best and forget the rest. Mama made sure we pray to God, highly blessed, and I am honored. No weapon formed against us should prosper. Don't ever forget. And I bet when you enter into school, you'll feel ultimate. No consequences of your accomplishments. Move away from the negativity, it got you bit. And if you getting in the midst, just take the time and repent. Stay focused, get a pencil, write about the lesson. Raise your righteous hand, find the answer to questions. Can be your main plan, leave a saucy impression. You are your own fan, you got this, is what I recommend. Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school. Back then, I loved school. I was cool. I was putting in my dues. I ain't wanna be no fool. Mama had it poppin', school supplies and shopping. Success was an option. Math had me locked in, but English was my topic. Lunchtime, I had it rocking. Lunch tables was knocking, and we wasn't stopping. In gym, I was good from the 3. Like Stockton, music class, I had everyone stuck. They was watching. We wore Jabot straps with retros and the watches. Love life, humble yourself. That's my creed. Think with your mind and heart, you will achieve. Pray on it, give it to God and proceed. Your goals, ambition, and God is all you need. Imagination and will is something we can't teach. Remember Dr. King, he had a whole dream. You can do whatever you want. I believe.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out the red carpet, yeah. got dreams and ambition. I'm ready and I'm willing. I'm meeting this competition. You don't wanna be my dinner. The whole shift changed when the music bang. Love the look on their face. I got dreams and ambition. I'm ready and willing. I'm meeting this competition. You don't wanna be my dinner. The whole shift changed when the music bang. I just love to see the look on their face. And if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I got dreams and ambition, man. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm ready and willing. Even if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm meeting this competition. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. You don't wanna be my dinner. I'm about to do this to death. Cause I know they watching. Don't understand the talking. Tell that dog to quit barking. I'm an entrepreneur, so correct when you talking. Bet I get it back and take a loss to be a boss. Coming fast and I'm switching lanes with it. Crisscross, never messing with you. Rapping ratchets, what you really thought. And my jab steady dreaming, chasing missions for the fam. Understand I'm flowing lands from the Milwaukee brand. Thought you knew you can't wear my shoes, not do what I do. It's a mob, I don't pick and choose, just sticking to the rules. Keep my beast above and beneath. They know I'm beauty. What you need, I got what you need when it come to it. Who been grinding all winter, so the summer extra lit. I've been in and out the booth trying to weigh up my greatness. It ain't no time to play with it, and if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I got dreams and ambition, man. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm ready and willing. Even if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm eating this competition. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. You don't wanna be my dinner.
With great precision, I'm on a mission. Lots of ambition, my transition. The time was ticking, willing and wishing. Just listen, I punch harder than Sonny Liston. They fishing, looking for teeth. It look like Lipton. They tripping. I am the king, whose competition? Collisions, conclusion is I'm in a position. Lifted, transcending beyond their comprehension. Time to hang it up, swaggerific, the lynchman. You know how this goes, just follow the street codes. We make it look easy like we putting in cheat codes. Beauty and the beast is in beast mode. Haters on the sidelines, I tell them to keep score. I go crazy on the beat, tell Spaz to keep it low. You know Mystique close with a toaster, you won't toast.
And if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I got dreams and ambition, man. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm ready and willing. Even if I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. I'm meeting this competition. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back. Cause I was born for this. You don't wanna be my dinner.
That's interesting.
Once upon a lifetime, was a man in the hood. Tricked, misguided, and misunderstood. Till one day he cried out, Lord, save me. Teach me the lessons of life, won't you raise me? Because I tried everything under my hat, and I found all my plans were tears in the right. I need a hero, a real life, a camaraderie, to step in to see me and deliver a power blank. Something to raise my head from the dust. It's a must. I find someone in whom I can trust. I must grow in knowledge, live what I learn. I'm so glad to meet you. Yo, my name is Vern. Lead me any way that you would, and I'll share. I need your power play. Another one. It's so good to be clothed in your right mind. Dreams to the front and all past behind. Memories of things you did so absurd. Came to the curb, now burns the word. Cause often we're little now. Problems can write us, but with power from God, yeah, we all stand victorious. Listen to receive the knowledge and digest the real only because a trooper like Jay keeps it righteous. And express upon the example of a vocalist, adjust your bubble. Leroy is like dangerous trouble. Trouble if you want it, peace if you with it. Never before known of a man who can stand it, but so irrelevant. So kick it in if you will, Lord. And I shall. I need your power play. Yeah, here comes another one. Power for living, power for expressing, power for the knowledge, and now you're non-guessing. When power meets the darkness, the devil's got to go. That's my Weasel, and now he's going loco. Got a problem, God can solve it. Power from the general, and you're in this outfit. Why must the fifth stay dirty so filthy? Get off your rear and whitewash the pickets. Power for cleansing, power for sanitizing, power for us, power for the rising of the sun. Cause in your darkest hour you can look up and express to feel the power up. I need your power play.
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are joined by Daniel, Baldemar, and Nikki. Welcome back, guys. It's so great to have you on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So we had left off on Bigfoot, and you were kind of going into a spiel there. Daniel, do you remember where we left off?
See. Oh man, there's so many thoughts that run through my head. I don't know where they're just racing through my head right now. I don't know where to stop back at.
Well, I have an idea. I could play the clip that you had sent me of.
Oh, sure.
Can you kind of give us a backstory?
Yeah. Well, like I said, now as far as this sound here, I have tried to play it for both Nikki and Baldemar before through my microphone, but since you have it downloaded, I'm sure they'll be able to hear it a lot better. Now, I've actually shared this audio with a real good friend of mine who actually studies different alleged Bigfoot related vocals, and he does try to run them through and try to compare to them all the wildlife. And I have done the same thing. The closest I've gotten this from, I've gotten would be a fox, but then again, it's just something about it. It kind of stands out. Now this happened probably back in 2000, probably between 15 and 16. It was during one of my campouts, and around the timestamp of this happened between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And actually, it came from the same area where I've actually had one of my encounters. But I'm not gonna say it's Bigfoot. It's just, but the thing is, it came from that area. Now, keep in mind, I'm very familiar with all the wildlife there. I mean, there is bobcat, there is deer and bear, and you name it. I mean, it's pretty much there on the most part. And again, the closest I've ever come to maybe matching it up, like I said, I may mention a fox, but there's something about it. It makes me think otherwise. I don't know. It's just me. So I don't know. It's very interesting. It's short. It's short, and it's kind of like almost like a screech. Now, for those who ever seen the movie The Sighting, now the vocalizations these Bigfoots yell, shout out, yell in this sound very identical to this. Again, I know that was a movie, but I don't know where they got those vocals from. But if those vocals were based off of other alleged Bigfoot reports or whatever, that would be cool to know. But like I said, I don't know whoever made that movie. I don't know what made them come up with those thoughts. I mean, those vocals. So, but yeah, this is how I picked this up from just leaving my audio recorder out during one of my campouts. So, and this happened. This vocal came from the National Forest, so here in Virginia. So everybody could feel free to share their input. Like I said, it could be a known animal. Like I said, I mean, if I have to pick a known animal, I'll probably go with a fox. But then again, it could be something else. So I'll let you guys listen to it. Yeah. So.
And I'm going to play this 3 times. It's only a 3-second tidbit. So I'm going to play it 3 times so you guys can really hear it. Here we go.
All right.
Well, that's very interesting. Like, if you heard that in the forest, everybody, what would you think that was?
No, we didn't.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, it didn't play on our end.
I didn't hear it either.
Okay, let me try it again.
Oh.
There it goes.
Were you guys able to hear it?
Yeah, that time, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how the audio is on this. Everybody else can hear it, but for some reason, my guests can't hear the music or anything that I play on here unless I put my headphones up to the mic. It's really weird.
Oh.
But everybody else hears it.
Yeah.
So I put my headphone up to the mic that last time. I can play it one more time if Nikki or Baldemar didn't get to hear it very well. You want to?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, let's go hear it.
All right, here we go.
I think
Hey,
a
Daniel.
coyote got his foot stuck in a trap.
Hey, Daniel, let me ask you this: was it what time of the year was it?
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember that this was during during the hunting season, because I camp a lot of times. When I camp out there, it is on the most part during the hunting season. This may. Right. I'm trying to recall. This may have been just before the hunting season, or in the early parts of the hunting season. So,
was it cold or anything like that?
At night, yeah, it does. It does drop down. It was probably, I would say, no more than probably 50, maybe 50 degrees. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Because there's sometimes when it's cold outside, and it's kind of icy.
Right.
Sometimes the thing actually comes out as well, but that's pretty wild sound. I like that.
Well, let me ask you this, Baldemar, too. Now, I know there's bobcats on that. I've gotten bobcats on my trail cameras walking like right across from where I got this audio, right where I got this audio. And if you walk across from camp, go out through the forest road and into the woods, there's a creek that runs right there, and that's where I've actually gotten them. In this area, in this very area, is where the encounters happen, where I've found tracks in this area. So, and then we've heard, me and others that camped in the area together. We've heard other vocalization, not similar to this, but we've heard different howls. You can hear coyotes communicate from one ridge to another. We've got the barred owls out there, and so like I said, as far as all them, I don't want to say it's them. Like I said, I feel if it is a known animal, I'm going to say it's more of a fox, because anyone who's ever listened to a fox, like a vixen, the cry of a vixen. If you look at them, look up those will be. You'll see how similar they are. That's why if I have to pick one, it would definitely be a fox. But then again, I don't know. It's definitely interesting to me.
And Jason in the chat room was saying, seems loud for a fox, but they're pretty loud.
Yeah. Because there's sometimes too. I mean, again, it's. Once you're familiar, Daniel and Nikki, so they know basically about the sounds that they make. But that was pretty wild and everything like that. And also too, you have to think about lung. How much air it could go into a lung in order for you to make that sound,
right?
And because so that's also one thing. And I work with the cryptozoologist by the name of Dr. Morley, and so he comes up there, and we normally talk about vocalizations and everything like that. And there was something similar to that he actually had in his vocals, so I go, well. I asked him a question, and the question was, he goes, "How do you know that this?" He goes, "Well, you could actually hear, because basically everything depends upon how much air is in their lungs. If it's a big lungs, they have to have a bigger animal to make that sound." So
right, that makes sense.
We had actually just finished a paranormal investigation near a river outside of, it was in between Bayfield and Durango, Colorado. And all of a sudden, as we turned off our equipment, we heard this screaming coming from outside. And we all rushed downstairs and ran out the front door. And it was a fox. And this was right before winter. And I think he was scared, like he was looking for his pack or something. Somebody had also said it was mating seasons for fox. So I'm not sure. But like you said, to have that lung capacity to make it so loud, it wasn't as loud as this recording, but it was, very kind of eerie or creepy, especially at the end of a investigation. We're like, what the crack is that?
Yeah. Oh,
so
definitely.
Actually on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook page, I shared some pictures that Daniel had sent to me of some tracks and such that he had captured with plaster cast or pictures, like with his foot next to the tracks. And I noticed that your tracks are quite different than a lot of other tracks that people bring in to portray tracks. Those look more like human feet with the toes all up on top. But this one reminded me a lot of an orangutan foot. Where did you find that particular print?
You talking about the one with my foot next to it? It looks like it has a little water in it.
Mm-hmm.
That one there. Yeah, that there was actually in an area that a friend of mine introduced me to, where he had, at the time, he had some recent reports. Now, keep in mind, this guy is a skeptic, and he's been out there, and he met a couple of young campers that came from there while he was camping there one time. And these campers, when they were leaving out of their campsite, they noticed he was over there, and I guess they felt the urge to come over and tell him why they were leaving. And supposedly they had some large rocks thrown into their camp, and they heard some kind of loud scream. And so after they left, he went to their campsite. He was curious enough to go check it out, and he saw where their campsite was. And he went up the hill up behind their camp, and he went far enough back to where he saw some rocks, and he saw where what appeared to be where some stones that were misplaced. But he took one about the size of what looked like what was missing and tried to throw it down into their camp. And he, according to him, he couldn't make it all the way to the camp. From the way he threw. And keep in mind, he is an older gentleman. But anyway, this particular area, real quick, he said he heard a scream too while he was up there. And so with all this being said, this particular area has also had bear hunters that reported seeing what they describe as something hairy and bipedal peeking out at them behind a tree. So when he kept telling me about all the different sounds he's always heard out there, he spent a lot of his life camping in this area, but it wasn't until these recent times where he was starting to hear other information from other people. So, and keep in mind, this area it's not in West Virginia, but it's very close to West Virginia, and it's still in Virginia, but it's very close. It's out in the middle of these vast mountains. It's down into a holler. He actually nicknamed this area Whispering Hollow for the very fact that there's these major power lines that run over top. And of course, at night, when the night settles, and it gets very eerie there because the fog and everything settles down in there into the lower area, and you can hear this, the electricity, sparkling and whatever from the power lines. Well, he took me there one time. Me and him, we camped there together one time. I camped there by myself one time, and I spent enough time roaming the area. And there was actually other tracks that I didn't send you that actually came from that area. Actually, the ones I sent you actually came from where the area not far from where you pull into the camp areas. And keep in mind, this is not a campground. These are it's just random primitive area. But yeah, these are the tracks I came across while searching the area. And but yeah, they came from West Virginia. So the western part of Virginia, not West Virginia, but close enough to it. So, but that's where those ones came from. So, but like I said, there was a little bit larger track. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead and finish what you're saying, and then I'll go after you.
Oh yeah. Like I said, there was another track. I don't know if I could find it, but because it took me a while to find those because I don't save things to my phone. I clear things out of my phone. I have so many photos online, it's hard to find everything. But there is another track, like I said, it's a little bit larger, but yet it almost looks similar to the shape of the ones I sent you from that area. But it was definitely an impression, a slight impression, and you can see the shape, you can see the toes, the heel and the toes, very clear. It was actually on the forest road, and keep in mind the forest road on the most part is pretty solid because it's so packed down. Even though it's all dirt, it's pretty well packed down on the most part. But I have found one. It looked like it appeared the subject was probably crossing the road because it was kind of like next to a mud puddle, but this was like not in the puddle. This was just an impression, and it was actually dry because the puddle was out in front of it. So I wish I could have found that one to send you. That was pretty interesting. If you saw that one, you would have saw the similarity, how it looked to the ones I sent you. But I don't know where that one went. So, but yeah.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. And the difference as far as other tracks that I've seen that look more like our feet. And that just makes you think again about the different species of Bigfoot that there could be.
Right.
Yeah. What I wanted to say really quick, because not everybody is in the chat room in Spreaker, if you would like to call in with any questions or comments or experiences that you may have had, feel free to call us at 1-970-335-9596. That's 1-970-335-9596.
Cool beans.
So I had an experience up in Rico, Colorado. We actually had a security gig up at a mine, and after we were there for a few weeks, we started getting large boulders tossed off the side of the mountain, and they would fall down the mountain into the riverbed, and different howling sounds, so on and so forth. And my husband is like, well, it could be a bear. And I'm like, no, a bear, when it goes down the trail or wherever it's walking, you may hear pebbles or rocks or whatever falling off the side of the mountain, but not being thrown and thudding and then going the rest of the way down the mountain.
Right.
So we had gone for an investigation at the Enterprise Bar and Grill. And the very next day I was like, hey, I want to go up to this mine and see if I can find any tracks or anything, which I did. Unfortunately, I didn't have any plaster casts, but I did like you had with those pictures and took a picture of the tracks, and then with my foot beside the track and with a large rock at the toe and the heel of the track, so on and so forth. We had gone back down to the Enterprise, and we were telling the owner and some of the locals there about what we had found, and a mother and daughter came up and said they were out having coffee on their back porch, and they were facing the opposite direction. This place is basically in a little valley of mountains, and they said in a clearing of aspen trees, they not only saw a Bigfoot clear it within less than a minute, but they saw an albino Bigfoot. Have you guys ever heard of an albino Bigfoot or any variation such as that?
I've heard of them, but I've never seen one.
Heard Yeah, I heard. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
but it makes you wonder. It could. Yeah, I mean,
see, the thing is,
I've heard of gray ones. I mean, it makes you think. Could it be from age, or is that just part of their just a natural hair color? You know. So.
See, yeah, I agree with Daniel as well. Because mine that I saw was a black in color. And I've seen evidence of a reddish color that was actually taken from a trail cam. I've actually heard eyewitnesses saying that they saw one that saw it black, but on their chest had a white patch on it. It could be because it actually could be because of age. We don't know what happens to Bigfoot when they get older in age, like in the 80s or 90s. We don't know how long they live to be, and so there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about them. Because again, I heard stories about white ones. So again, it could be dealing with age, or it could just be just an impediment.
Yeah, like a genetic anomaly, because there's albinos of many different creatures out there. So why not Bigfoot?
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw in the chat, Nikki said she's got to jump off real quick, so she's got to leave.
Oh, is she gone for the night?
I don't know if she's... Nikki, you still there?
I go. Yeah.
Okay.
Just about to head out.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for having me on, Tessa.
Thanks for coming on, Nikki. Is there a link or anything that you would like to share for any of our listeners that may want to come to you with any questions?
Well, if you're interested in Bigfoot, I do have a Facebook group page called Bigfoot Weekly, and you're welcome to come in and join the group. It's a closed group, but I can bring you on, and we have a lot of chats, and we post a lot of articles, and free to give opinions. We have a pretty no-nonsense group, and it's fun. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. It was
All right,
great
thank
having
you,
you
Nikki.
on.
Good night, Nikki.
Night. Love and light.
All right. Cool. Yeah, Nikki's a good girl. We definitely love having her on the podcast and stuff too. She definitely keeps everybody in line.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, she's very smart, and even though she's a believer, she tries to rationalize things and doesn't just jump to, I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, but it's Bigfoot.
Right. Absolutely. Oh.
So as far
let's
as
see.
evidence, what is the most compelling piece of evidence that you guys have ever captured?
That's a good one.
I guess I don't know. I mean, as far as finding the tracks, I mean, I've come across over the years. I have come across a lot of tracks, but I mean, they may not be a lot to some people, but they're definitely a lot to me. And there's other tracks I've always taken pictures of that I come across. I don't always get the cast tracks, but I do come across a lot of them. If there's tracks in the area, trust me, I'm that observant. If I have people with me, I always tell them, well, watch where you step because you might just, come across something. I've actually made that mistake. I've actually stepped in tracks where I got so upset with myself because when you realize it was a perfect looking track and you happen to step in it because you weren't paying attention, it's kind of a lesson you learn, learn to be a little bit more careful. But yeah, I've upset myself by doing not paying attention. But yeah, as far as tracks, I would have to say tracks, but I mean, there's some structures and things I've found out in the woods that kind of blew me away. But then again, that we believe that were built by hands, but we can't rule out the possibility of people building them. But some of the things we come across, why are people building what we find? That but I don't know. But for the safe side of things, I'll just say the tracks are the most fascinating thing for me because, again, that's physical evidence, but not according to science. Because tracks, the main reason why science will not accept tracks as physical evidence for Bigfoot's existence, because tracks can be hoaxed, and they have been hoaxed in the past. I mean, who was it? Ray Wallace, I think, from back in the 50s, 1956, I think it was. I could be off a few years, but yeah, the Wallace family. Yeah, there was some hoaxing with tracks back then around a logging area, but so yeah, that's the thing. Tracks, that's the thing. Tracks could be hoaxed. My main thing is too, when I look at it, when it comes to tracks, I see a lot of people present a lot of casts and stuff. I was like, man, how do they get them so pretty looking? It makes you really wonder, what are they doing to make them look so pretty? I mean, I know I have to keep in mind it depends on the terrain, because if you look at a lot of my tracks and the cast, they look kind of sloppy, but that depends on the terrain. And some people got the prettiest looking tracks, because I've done part of my research and my study, I did a impression of my own foot one time, and I made a cast of it. If you saw how smooth and clear that track was compared to what I find out in the woods, it's a big difference. And, that was a track that I made for my own foot in some clear, soft mud. It wasn't soft. It was kind of firm. I actually had to put some pressure into it, but like I said, when I made the cast, it came out perfect. None of my other tracks that that I find out in the woods ever come out that clear. Sometimes I question some of the things that people find and present online, because I was like, that's too pretty to be real. I mean, they got to be finding things on the perfect soil if they're getting them that clean and good looking. But I don't know. That's just me. So, but, yeah.
What about you, Baldemar?
My favorite, my thing is collecting old stories, talking to the old timers, people that talk about the experiences that happened to their father when they were like 8 years old, and this was like in the 1920s, 1924 to somewhere between 1924 and 1925, and listen to these old timers talking to them about their experiences that they had down the creeks, and then these stories were actually passed down a little bit. And there's some times when they were so afraid to tell anybody their stories because of being ridiculed, and so they just kept it to themselves. And then so when the Bigfoot stuff started happening over here in South Texas, and I started telling my experiences and everything like that, more people started coming out, and then more stories came out, and more stories came out in the 50s, the 30s, the 20s, and it was just fascinating. And then because even the Spanish people, when Texas used to be part of Mexico, they didn't call Bigfoot, the way they call it now. They call it like if fantasma negro basically means the black ghost, or el hombre ladino, so basically it means a wild man. It always had a story here. It always had a legend, and these people talked about it. But this is what happened to my grandfather when he was working cattle. And this is what happened to my grandmother when she was out there picking grapes to make wine. I mean, just those stories. And then, again, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and you come up there, and I'm thinking to myself, these stories up here basically tells me that something has actually been going on for so long, way before the Patterson film, way before all this stuff happened about legends about Bigfoot. The people was actually starting seeing something. And so how can I come up there and tell these people that, is it actually, try to question them when you're talking to them and you hear that fear in the voice or the emotion when they tell the story, when the very first thing that comes out to their mouths is, I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but this is what happened to me. This is what happened to my grandfather. This is what happened to my grandmother. And you have these stories. And then to me, that's the most evidence that I need that there was really something truly out there. And I'm going to be leaving myself here, but I'm going to tell you this story. And again, people have to realize, up in nature, sometimes you have to think about certain things. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. It was maybe like around 7 years ago, and I was staying in this particular area. And there was a little coastal field, and it must have been like around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And down this coastal field and all the way back, there was nothing but all these deep creeks, and sometimes in these creeks they have caves in there. And then one particular night, I was out there. I did a Bigfoot call, and then all of a sudden I heard a whistle, and the whistle was very strange. It was crossed between like a parrot and a dolphin. That's the best way for me to describe it. And I heard this little whistle. And then so the whistle was actually coming towards me. And then so I stopped calling. And then so it was so close to it was just quite far away from me, where more or less I knew where this thing was at. And I had a flashlight with me. I said, you know what? And something told me, don't turn on that flashlight. Just stay put. And then so this little whistling sound started happening, trying to figure out where this call was coming from. And then so, I stopped. I said, man, that's a baby Bigfoot. And then so I said, no. I goes, he must think that I'm his mom or something. She goes, don't do or don't say anything. If not, you're really going to mess up this little creature, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, there was a call into the creek. And then all of a sudden, this little Bigfoot, that's what I thought that it was at the time, started whistling back. And you could actually hear the whistle going deeper into the creek, and then all of a sudden it just stopped whistling. And the whistling sound must have lasted like around 3 to 4 minutes, but it was totally fascinating. See, and the thing was, if I would have kept on calling, I knew real well that it would definitely came to me, and that I would have found out exactly what it was. But again, here's a baby. There's no telling where the mama's at. There's no telling where the daddy's at. I had to be safe myself, but I also had to protect whatever was coming towards my way, like that he could go find basically find out where he or she needed to be. So
it makes me wonder, because larger Bigfoot generally use the scream, maybe because it can travel farther as far as sound. It's more intimidating. And you saying that the little Bigfoot was using a whistle. And I'm thinking, well, why doesn't it scream? Well, perhaps when a little baby one screams, it sounds more like an animal in trouble, and that could attract prey, perhaps. So instead they whistle, instead of doing a scream that isn't going to sound as aggressive or scary.
Right.
Yeah, to me, that makes sense right there, too. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, all right, ma'am. Thank you very much for having me, and I really do appreciate it. I got to go back home. I gotta travel a few miles away. So, again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Baldemar.
I'm going to tell everybody good night. Daniel, I'll see you later.
Sounds good, Baldemar. Thank you.
Are there any links or any way you'd like our listeners to find you? No.
I have a page. It's called B County Bigfoot Research, and so normally people come up there and tell their stories and stuff. And I put up stuff that I find or stuff that I found around South Texas area. And another researcher here from South Central Texas also puts stuff up there as well. And normally, if anybody wants to have a conversation about Bigfoot or help with anything like that, I could help anybody out if anybody has any questions or anything. So there's sometimes people, ma'am.
Go ahead, finish.
Yeah, because there's sometimes out there, where maybe your viewers are hearing this thing for the very first time. There's sometimes that people are afraid to tell their stories because they're afraid to be ridiculed or anything like that. But doing with my page, you can come up there and tell me whatever you like, or tell me your experience or anything like that. At least, I'm not going to tell you that you're crazy or anything like that. I like to just collect stories.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for, coming out with your story and making people feel easier or more at ease about telling their stories and giving them a place of comfort where they don't feel the judgment and ridicule and, fear of people downing them, because there's a lot of that out there, and it's so important to have places that feel like home or places that are comfortable for people. So thank you so much, Baldemar, for doing that for people and giving them a place to get it out and hear other people's experiences.
Great. All right, ma'am. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good night.
All right,
you
good
too,
night.
Baldemar.
Night.
And then there were two.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have very much longer, and one of the questions I had for you, did you ever have an experience where you were out in the field where you actually feared for your life at one point?
Honestly, I can't say I've ever felt fear for my life. I felt fear, but not for my life. More of a nervous feeling. One of my encounters, it wasn't a physical sighting encounter, but this was another event when I was camping by myself, and there was nobody in the area. This particular time, it was probably about, I'll say it was close to about 10 o'clock at night. I had a fire going. Oh, and I was actually camping there because it was hunting season. This was 2015 to be exact. And I had a spotlight, and I decided to take my spotlight and walk out to the middle of the forest road from outside of the camp. Now, keep in mind, while I walked out to the middle of the camp, I never turned my spotlight on till I got to the middle of the road. And when I started shining the spotlight, I started to my left, basically around the 10 o'clock position. Immediately, as soon as I pulled the trigger on the spotlight, I started shining it. I kicked up a deer. You could hear the sound of a deer take off. I didn't see it, but you could hear it. I know the sound of deer and wildlife. And so I continued panning, from my left to my right. And as soon as I got around the 1-2 o'clock position, that's when I heard what put me on edge. Just beside the tree line, you could hear how close it was. And there was no doubt that it was bipedal and very large and very heavy. What I heard next was steps walking away from me. And when I heard these steps, because I knew, even though I didn't see it, I knew what I was hearing. And to hear the sounds of bipedal steps, real heavy, you could tell the subject had been large. It had some weight to it. Every step it took had a thump and a crunch as it stepped on the ground. And it wasn't a slow walk either. You could hear, but it wasn't too fast. It was more of a like, okay, it's going to see, I don't, it didn't want to be spotted. So it was just trying to get away. So, when I heard this, I was immediately, my heart started going up in my throat because I'm standing with a spotlight and it's dark around me and I'm walking backwards towards my camp while keeping the spotlight shining towards the woods. And I'm reaching down. I had my Chevy Blazer at the time and I was hitting the button on it just in case I had to jump in it real quick. But after I got back into my camp, I calmed down. I mean, because I made the fire get a little bit bigger and I grabbed my shotgun to keep it close to me. And like I said, I actually calmed down and I got to thinking about that. I was like, wow, if that wanted to hurt me, now here I am assuming it was a Bigfoot. I mean, what else could it be? I know it wasn't a bear. I've had too many encounters with bears. I know how they sound. A bear could actually walk up on you and you'll probably never know it because they're very quiet. Yeah, they'll make a little scuffling. I've seen bears drop out of a tree and scuffle and take off like lightning. But yeah, like I said, I got to thinking about that. I was like, yeah, if there was any aggression there, if it was dangerous, if it wanted to come after me, I'm sure it could have easily. But I would say that it was a scary kind of nervous feeling because I was alone and not seeing what I was hearing. Was another thing too, but I would have to say that was kind of a scary feeling because like I said, I was alone and it was dark. There was nobody else around. And if it was to come at me, I was actually totally unarmed at that particular moment, so, but yeah, that was it. So
that's pretty intense.
So
and just being in the forest by yourself
was.
Anyways is pretty intimidating at times.
Well, a lot of people, when they hear that, some of the places I go hiking a lot by myself and I go pretty deep in the woods sometimes. And some people have no idea how far I go in, but when I take them with me, they want to go where I go. So, and I tell them, I said, all right, keep up. And the thing is, I'm not fast. When I'm in through the woods, I actually do take my time, but just the terrain that I venture and I travel through, I mean, I got people that lag behind and they start crying and complaining. I'm serious. I was like, this is not rough terrain. I said, I'm not taking these. Are we there yet? I mean, most of the time I'm actually taking them in on a trail, old logging trail or something, through the forest. But, I said, yeah, when I try to be considerate of other people, I said, there's other ways I know how to get through the woods. I mean, I could walk. I don't have to be on a trail to find my way through the woods. I mean, there's places I go. I know my area. I've been in there for years. I've learned to lay out the land, and I know where every direction leads. I know my sense of direction. I mean, you can put me in the middle of those woods blindfolded. I will find my way out. I'm not bragging, but that's how I am. And I surprise people because they underestimate me. So, but people always ask me, do you ever take people out there in the woods with you? I said, yeah. I said, I try to plan it in a yearly event, for, to get groups of people together. I mean, I might only get, 6 to 8 people, which that's actually good. I don't really want too much of a big crowd because unless I have somebody else with me that knows the area real well and that we can split up. But I always find it more productive with a smaller group, especially at night. Like the particular area where I set up base camp, I tell people, I said, we don't have to go nowhere. It's okay to explore during the day to look for tracks and find certain things, and so they can get the feel of the land and everything. But I said, if you guys want to hear things and experience things, I said, just sit here, relax, and be yourselves, and just try to be on alert and listen at the same time. I mean, it's amazing because right where I set up my base camp, it's right across from where a lot of activity happens. And sometimes it's failed. Sometimes you may not experience something, but on the most part, if you're out there during the right time of year and everything, it always produces. It never fails. I can go out there and spend a week out there right now. You may not hear nothing. But you just never know. But that's the main thing. When you get out there in the woods, you want to enjoy yourself, like they mentioned earlier. That's very important. Don't go out there with an aggressive approach. Just go out there, take your time, and be observant, and just take it all in.
I've heard different people try different things, and one of my friends, Samara, she actually had these sticks with laces at the tops of them, and she's swinging them around and dancing and kind of singing a little song or whatever, and it made the Bigfoot curious, and so they'd creep in and they're watching what she's doing, like, what the heck is this lady doing? But like you said, enjoying nature, enjoying your surroundings. Don't go out there as a predator or a hunter or whatnot. And like Baldemar was saying, it's when you least expect it when you actually see something. If you're going out there with the intent of finding something, they have that sense, whether it's a sixth or seventh or eighth sense, that they can pick up on that and they know what you're up to. So if you're out there just to enjoy nature, have fun, enjoy your surroundings, they're more likely to come in and see how you do things. Have you ever set up a giving site where you put something out there for them and go back and see if they've come and picked it up?
Yes and no, I do, but I'm very funny on that. I mean, I'll do it anyway, but it's just the thing is, if the object or whatever I leave there ends up missing, the other thing is very important. We can't rule out there's other critters out there that could pick up and take off with things like raccoons. They do stuff like that. Birds. A lot of people say, actually, certain birds will pick items up and go off with them.
Magpies.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually funny you say that because they've been reported bringing different objects, toys, and stuff that they pick up in random places, and then dropping them off, just weird things. It's just weird. But I played around. I made my own little cheap little bead necklaces and stuff. So, get some yarn, get some cheap beads from the crafts section of the store, and put some things together and make them shiny and stuff. Just things that might spark their curiosity. But the thing is, if these things show up missing, like I say, we don't know what's really taking them. We like to believe they're Bigfoot taking them, but I have different theories. If you're going to start doing stuff like that, maybe try hanging them higher, like off limbs. Like a lot of people like using apples. Which, if you're going to use any kind of food, I would definitely go with an apple. Try not to use peanut butter. I'm guilty of using peanut butter, but we don't know if Bigfoot is getting peanut butter. We don't know if they're allergic. We could be causing more harm than anything.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned leaving peanut butter cups for them, and that's a good thought that you just had there. Perhaps they're allergic. You never know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that are allergic to have the peanut allergy. So, and that's the thing. We don't know if we're causing more harm than good. I mean, like I said, I'm guilty of using peanut butter. But I've had my trail camera set up where I left the peanut butter jar. I had a bear in the can on my picture with a jar of peanut butter in his mouth, taking off. I was like, well, there goes that. So we know bears love peanut butter.
And I just had a thought about the game cameras. I wonder why somebody hasn't come up with a game camera where when it does go off, instead of going or click or whatever, it'll make like a sound like a bird or some other animal that might exist in the forest. That could be a good idea.
That is, I like that. I really do. Something that sounds more natural to that area, where you're putting them at. Something where you could program it to make whatever sound like. Say if you have a certain type of bird or a certain animal in that area, if it does do it. Well, that's a thing too, because I mean, a lot of trail cameras, if it's a good trail camera, we're not going to hear it. But that's assuming if there is a sound coming from it that we don't hear, that if Bigfoot is hearing something, well, I mean, we really don't know that. I think that's just a kind of a theory, but where people, there is a lot of people believe that they can hear the sounds that the electronics make, or maybe they give off something that we don't sense. So, but at the same time, I do believe in using cameras and stuff like that. I just believe it's a matter of time if people use them enough. I've picked up almost every other wildlife off of cameras before, so then again, like I said, I think having them in the right place at the right time and maybe just leaving them out there long enough and even camouflaging them. My buddy Tracy Arnold, Tracy once did a video blog, on his theory on how to camouflage a camera, using natural sources like tree bark and moss, up against other, down trees and stuff like that. I believe that is something that could really work if people use that technique, that method. Like I said, a lot of things could work. It's just sometimes when we try things for a short period of time and we get no results, doesn't mean it's not working. It just, we don't know if Bigfoot's going to travel through that area. He might pass through there 1 month out of the year, but so if we take our time and try these different techniques and stay persistent or whatever, with these different methods and techniques, you might get results eventually. It's just, I just think it's just a matter of time. I do plan on investing in more cameras. I've actually had cameras out in the woods in one area where I was actually setting them out because I hunt in this one particular area behind my camp, and I've had 2 of them stolen. So that was just a little over a year ago. And it's funny, I've always had these cameras out there in the past. Other hunters always acknowledge them. It's funny, hunters will actually see them and smile and make goofy faces, move on. And I'd never actually had problems with it before. But this one particular time, the wrong person found them this time, and took them. So
maybe Bigfoot thought it was cool and ripped it off the tree or whatever, or maybe some a-hole in the forest.
Yeah.
You never know.
Exactly.
Now you need to chip your equipment. Damn it.
Yeah, that thought ran across my mind too. I was like, there's got to be a way I could
knock on some guy's door. Hey, can I have my camera back? Or trace it back to where they're staying.
Reference. Yeah, and I would say, you could actually get the law. If you have a tracking device on something and have serial numbers and proof of that item that belongs to you, you actually get the law involved. I'm sure. Say, hey, look, I got a tracking device on this. My camera was stolen, but it's showing up. It's at this location. Hey, how could I go about doing it? If you want to do it legally, or just go show the approach. I think that'd be the safest way because you don't know who actually took it. That could be whatever, but
yeah,
I don't know.
All of a sudden you hear banjo music and you're like, all right, time to head back to the vehicles.
Exactly. Next you know, you're dealing with people from the Hills Have Eyes and everything else. Right?
Now it's on. Have you guys ever used, or have you ever used a FLIR camera in the field, infrared?
I have in the past with a cheaper one that actually was made for the phone. Which that there, I didn't get enough use of that, but when I did, it works great. But when that got lost, I went several years without one, and I actually have a good one now. Which is, it works real well. I've done a little bit of field testing with it when I went, when I was just down in South Carolina last month, and you know what? I was actually impressed with it. It really works out in the woods. It showed the deer in the long distance real well, and I've had other people out in the woods with me down there, and you could really clearly see the humanoid shapes and everything so clear through the thermal imager. And but I have yet to do more field observations with it. I didn't do enough, but the thermals do work. So if there's a Bigfoot around, I can guarantee you will see them. Like I said, I picked up deer and the people out in the woods with me at a good distance. So if I could pick up the people and the animals like that so clear, yeah, if there's a Bigfoot around, you'll definitely catch them.
Well, Daniel, we are unfortunately at the end of our time. Can you tell our listeners where to find you, your videos, your pics, etc., etc.?
All right. Well, yeah, I'm publicly on Facebook as Daniel Benoit, Benoit. I have several ECBRO like pages and other groups. We have the main ECBRO Facebook group as well. And also, I have a blog site. You could check that out at www.ecbro.wordpress.com. Too many dots in that one, but so yeah, I have my WordPress site, the ECBRO WordPress site. You could check out my YouTube channel. YouTube, it's Bigfoot Zone with ECBRO in parentheses. There's a lot of field videos on there, as well as other open discussions and podcasts on there as well. And that pretty much about wraps it up. But if you enter in ECBRO, you'll definitely find me one way or another.
Well, thank you so much again for being my guest tonight, Daniel and Baldemar and Nikki, who have already left. It was so great having you. Very interesting and entertaining. And I hope to have you guys back someday again.
Oh, absolutely. I really enjoyed this session. I really did. This was great. And a lot of discussion and everything. It's really great to do that. We love doing these kind of things. We love open discussions, and especially one thing, we always welcome interaction from the listeners because it really adds to everything. Like I said, when they ask questions, it helps with our discussion as well to carry it on and so forth. And